Good morning on this beautiful Tennessee fall day. It is a great day to be out and about if we can as the afternoon goes by. Um, we will take care of some housekeeping in a moment. We'll need to call the roll, ask you the two questions, and then affirm our need or the necessity of meeting electronically. But I wanted to do a couple of things first. The first of which, of course, is very sad. As we know, we lost our Tcat Nashville president, Mark Lenz, on Wednesday, September 8th. Mark's service is next month on Saturday, October 23. And of course, at our foundation, we have established a scholarship in Mark's memory, which of course his family said would be exactly what he would want. I know for all of us who have been in and out of that Tcat and for all of our presidents who have worked with Mark, there certainly wasn't anyone who had more enthusiasm and more excitement for the job. I told Rick Lockwood the other day when we were reminiscing that when I first got appointed to the board, the very first Tcat I visited was to go over and see Mark. And we went from classroom to classroom. I met students. He talked about the needs of the college, but nobody does it with more exuberance than Mark. We saw a picture yesterday. There was to be an event yesterday at the Tcat for a program they have going with Cummins, which has now been postponed because Mark was so integral in that process. But in postponing it, they sent a photograph of Mark in the center, surrounded by beaming students at a graduation. And it both made my heart hurt and made me smile, because that photograph was the very essence of Mark Lenz. So with your permission, I'd love to take a moment of silence this morning to honor his memory. And of course, we will have a chance to honor him tomorrow as well with a board resolution. So please join me in a moment of silence for the memory and the service of Mark Lenz. Thank you. And our blessings to Jolette and his entire wonderful family, including a new grandbaby, Eden. You recently met at our committee chairs meeting our two new regents, but I wanted to reintroduce them this morning as we begin our committee meetings. As you know, we are privileged to be joined now by a new student regent, Clifford Thompson, the man with the magic voice. Clifford is a student at our Tcat Hohenwald. He works in automotive technology, I should say, at a local automobile dealer where he has a position of great responsibility. He is a community college graduate from Alabama originally, but found his way to our Tcat and is working on that second degree and brings a tremendous work ethic and a whole lot of talent to us. Clifford, what am I missing about you?
I don't think I could have said it any better myself, man. You did a fantastic job.
Well, you're very kind, and we look forward to having you with us this year. And of course, you guys have met Ramona Shelton, who is an assistant professor of history at Motlow State. She too has great experience in teaching at the community college level and tremendous ties to Tennessee, a graduate of Martin Methodist College, now UT Southern, and has done wonderful things at Motlow State, including serving as the curriculum chair in her department. Ramona, once again, welcome. And what else would you like to add?
Thank you. I'm very honored to be here, and I'm definitely looking forward to all the things that I'll get to learn as part of this process.
Excellent. And I neglected to mention that you have been through the Community College Leadership Program at ETSU, and I believe you're working on your doctorate at ETSU currently.
Yes, ma'am. I'm in the second semester of that part of the program.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we appreciate your wisdom. She joins us, of course, as the non-voting faculty regent for this first year of a 2-year term. So we're pleased to have you both with us. We have 5 committee meetings this morning. I know we all tend to sit on each other's committee meetings, which is so valuable in having a holistic view of the system. We have reordered committee meetings slightly to accommodate some ever-changing busy schedules, and we appreciate everybody's cooperation in that. So with that, Sanja, Chancellor, do you have any opening comments before we call the roll, my friend?
No, just to say happy fall to everyone, and thank you all for being here this morning. We look forward to a great 2 days together and a lot of information to cover, so thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor. Sanja, with that, let's call the roll. And by the way, we're going to call the roll for each committee meeting. However, we will not have to answer the 2 questions again, except for those joining us later. So we'll call the roll and we'll ask you the 2 questions that we're all familiar with, and then we'll move on to a motion on the necessity to meet electronically. Ms. Mason, are you ready?
I'm ready. Thank you. In accordance with TCA 844-103, we need to ask you these 2 questions. First, can the regent simultaneously hear and speak with others participating in the meeting? And second, is the regent alone in the room? If the answer to both of these questions is yes, the regent can simply answer yes to both questions. So now I'll begin the roll. Governor Lee? Regent Apple?
Here and yes to both questions.
Regent Burdine?
Here and yes to both questions.
Regent Duckett? He is absent today. I remember he has a commitment today. Regent George?
Here, yes to both questions.
Regent Gill?
Here and yes to both questions.
Regent Green?
Here and yes to both questions.
Regent Hatch? He will join us later. Commissioner Hatcher?
I'm here. Yes to both questions.
Regent House? Regent Powers?
Good morning. I'm here and yes to both.
Regent Reed?
Good morning. Yes to both, unless you want to count Mr. Peppers, but he doesn't talk much.
Thank you. Vice Chair Reynolds?
Good morning. I'm here, obviously, and yes to both.
Thank you. Commissioner Schwinn? Regent Shelton?
I'm here and yes to both questions.
Regent Thompson?
Here and yes to both.
Regent Varlin?
Here and yes to both.
Regent Womp?
Here and yes to both.
Regent White? He will join us later. Madam Chair, you have your board is assembled for the committee meetings.
Thank you very much. So, as we know, we had originally hoped to be on our own state campus this year, but with the continuing COVID emergency situation, we did make a determination that it was probably safer for all, given travel and time together, to meet electronically. We do, however, need to affirm that decision that this was, in fact, a necessity to meet electronically, and the floor is open for a motion to approve that this meeting in an electronic fashion.
So moved.
Thank you. Miles, was that you?
Yes.
Thank you, Regent Burdine. And a second? Thank you, Regent Varlin. Any discussion? Hearing none. Sanja, let's call the roll.
Thank you. Regent Apple?
Aye.
Regent Burdine?
Aye.
Regent George?
Aye.
Regent Gill?
Aye.
Regent Green? Regent Green? I see your mouth move, yes. Commissioner Hatcher?
Aye.
Regent Powers,
Aye.
Regent Reed,
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds,
Aye.
Regent Thompson,
Aye.
Regent Garland,
Yes.
Regent Womp.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you all very much. And one more brief introduction and welcome to offer this morning. Tomorrow we will take an action to elect a new board secretary as Sanja leaves us for this next chapter in her life, which I know we all have a heavy heart in that decision as well, but we certainly understand. But I did want to say that Mariah Hughes Perry, assuming she doesn't run away before tomorrow when we take this action, will be officially joining us as your board secretary tomorrow, but she started work with us on Wednesday. The beauty of this is that she will have some time to spend with Sanja and gets to participate in this meeting. Mariah comes to us, as you know, from seeing the Chancellor's email earlier this week, comes to us from the State Treasurer's Office, where she has done great work for both our treasurer, who's very supportive of the Board of Regents, and done great work for the state of Tennessee. And she is currently working on her doctorate as well at UTC. So Mariah, welcome, and we all look forward to getting to know you a little better as we move along.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reynolds. I do also look forward to working with the board, and it's so happy to be here.
Thank you very much. You are filling big shoes, but you know that, so soak up everything you can.
That is the plan.
Thank you. Welcome again. So with that, Miles Burdine, Chairman of the Committee on Workforce Development, let's call your committee meeting to order, please, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Before I do that, though, I wanted to welcome Clifford to our committee. And Clifford, glad you're joining us. And tradition is that new committee members are supposed to sing their school song. So we'll wait patiently while you do so.
My signal cut out a little bit. Which song am I being requested to sing?
Your school song. Just kidding. Don't do it. We don't want to hear it.
Thank you. I'm a terrible singer.
Thanks, everyone, for being at the meeting this morning. I'm calling the informational meeting of the Workforce Development Committee to order, and I'd like to ask Madam Secretary to call the roll, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair Burdine.
Here.
Regent George.
Here.
Thank you. Regent Hatch. Regent Powers.
Here.
Thank you. Regent Reed.
Here.
Regent Thompson.
Here.
Regent Garland.
I'm here.
Thank you. Chair Burdine,
Thank
you
you,
have a
Madam
quorum.
Secretary. Thank you very much. We have a quorum. We'll proceed. President Puryear, turn the microphone over to you, please.
Okay, good morning. Thank you, Vice Chair Reynolds, Chairman Bernard, Chancellor Tidings, and of course our committee members. We are delighted to be here today to share with you about what's going on with the Center for Workforce Development. We've had a busy summer. We hosted the Southern Legislative Conference and had over 30 folks here to find it from all over the southern states to find out how we work with business and industry across the TBR system. So that was a great workshop. We presented to the Tennessee Roundtable about the center and the services that we can offer to their members. We hosted the Tennessee Chamber Workforce Development Conference last week that Chancellor Tidings was one of the main speakers. We also presented to the Women in Manufacturing back in the summer as well. And next week, we're going to host the We Grow Talent Workforce Summit for the Rutherford County Chambers. So we are telling our story. We're letting people know what the center does, but mainly that the center represents 40 of the best colleges in this nation who provide workforce training to make sure that Tennessee has that workforce that they need. So Carol, if you'll go to the next slide, we do just have two informational items for you today. So if it pleases the committee, I'll just go through these two sections and then be happy to take any questions you might have. We have the update on the Center for Workforce Development Projects, and then want to talk a little bit about a snippet of the presentation I did for women in manufacturing. So is it okay with the board if we just go to the committee and go through and then take questions at the end, Chairman? Perfect, yes. And that's what we'll do. Thank you. The first topic is going to be about apprenticeships. Next slide, please. And just going to give you a few updates. This is probably the newest and most exciting thing that we have working on under the leadership of Nathan Garrett, who is the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and Workforce Alignment. Our TBR institutions are partnering with the Pennsylvania College of Technology. And this is a huge title. The U.S. Department of Labor Scaling Apprenticeship Grant, Modular Industry-Driven Apprenticeship Strategies, or better known as MIDAS. But I'm just going to give you a 30,000-foot view of this partnership. I'm happy to say that the center representatives and Jennifer Fuchs, workforce coordinator for the center, will also be assisting Nathan on this project. So we look forward to working with our campuses and, of course, the Pennsylvania team. But this is going to be taking a look at the advanced manufacturing sectors. We have 24 colleges that are going to participate. 8 are community colleges, 16 are Tcat. This will actually be looking at workforce apprenticeship training, which is a little different. So it's not the credit side, it is all workforce. With the MOU has been executed with TBR and the Pennsylvania College in August. We are doing the finalizing of the subgrant by November 1. Colleges are currently working on the workforce development non-credit advanced manufacturing programs to support the grant. So hopefully in December, we maybe will be in person and Nathan can give you an update and give you direction on what we're doing. But this is very exciting to be asked by another state to join them. Just a FYI, we do have 275 current apprentices that are working under TBR sponsorships and over 290 that are on employer scholarships. Those are the registered apprenticeships, but we've got a couple of an exciting project that Tcat Morristown is working on with Molly, which is the largest manufacturer employer in Morristown. They produce engine pistons for passenger, commercial, and motorsports. They have been working under the leadership of Chris Edmondson and, of course, the president there, Jerry Young, to work with Molly on developing 2 custom apprenticeship programs in industrial electricity and mechanical maintenance. So we're very excited about that. Next slide. This is a first. I think this morning's all about a lot of firsts. Walter State Community College is on the verge of an exciting new apprenticeship program, an international apprenticeship program with the Chamber of Skilled Crafts. Walter State has signed a letter of intent to develop an apprenticeship program for 3 butchery-related occupations, 2 occupations in plumbing, and also an electrical area. The approvals are in the process. You can imagine the approval process for an international apprenticeship program, but hats off to Walter State, certainly President Mixa, Dr. DePriest, and certainly Anita Ricker, Dr. Ricker, for working on this, along with the Department of Labor, working with the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce abroad. Lots of great things going on. This is going to be a fun apprenticeship program and really start us on a whole new league. So congratulations to Walter State. Next, please. Of course, one of the areas that we work with in the center is the Governor's Correctional Education Initiative. I'm happy to report that through DocuSign, and those of you with TBR and presidents will know exactly what I'm talking about, going right now through the system is the new Culinary Arts Articulation Agreement, simply stating that the people who are incarcerated right now that are going through the Tennessee Department of Corrections culinary arts program. Once they leave, they will be able to articulate with our community colleges and earn up to 10 hours of credit for the work that they've already completed. This is our 6th articulation agreement between the Department of Corrections and TBR. And in just a few minutes, you'll see why that's so important and how it's going to help, again, build our workforce. They are continuing to do industry certifications. In the New Bern area, they had 57 certifications in the IT area. They're continuing to set up Pearson VUE certification centers across the correctional institution. I'm so excited about that. But on the right-hand side, you see Chantel Kimball, and she is the reason why we do what we do. And I'm happy to just share with you that she is a student that is working at Nashville State Tech. She started with the Deborah Johnson Rehabilitation Center in their associate degree program. She has since left Deborah Johnson. I'm happy to say that she is enrolled in Nashville State Tech, taking 9 hours. I don't know which she's most excited about, her ID or her parking pass, but she is a person that truly is excited to be on a college campus and making a difference. She has a 4.0 GPA, and she was so excited when she received her Dean's List letter from the president. If all goes as expected, and I'm pretty sure it will, she will take her last 9 hours next spring. So she will be a graduate May of 2022. And just an absolutely wonderful young lady who had a bump, had to start over, but is on her way to a wonderful future, which is exactly what Governor Bill Lee's Correctional Education Initiative hopes to do, and that is to make sure that education is available so that students like Chantel can earn their degrees through this partnership between the Department of Corrections and TBR. So we are excited, and we will be watching, and who knows, President Jackson, you might have a whole crowd of people at graduation cheering this young lady on. So we're excited to share that story. The next one, I can't let this go. I'm a girl that was raised with gardening and that kind of stuff. So Carol, if you'll change the slide, please. I've got to let you know that Dr. Yolanda Jones has done it again. Tcat New Bern is offering a successful farming operation at Northwest Correctional Complex, one that we hope to replicate across the correctional institutions. The instructor, Austin Hopper, is with Tcat New Bern, and he is so excited that his students have really taken to this program. Several of them talked about driving a tractor for the first time. They talked about building the greenhouses, but most importantly, they are growing some great things in West Tennessee. As you can see from the pictures, they actually had some extras from their garden, and so like good stewards, Tcat New Bern and Northwest Correctional Center shared those with folks in Lake County, with nursing homes, with schools, and it just goes to show you again what we can do when we all work together for the good of the community. As you know, Lake County is a distressed county, and so this has been a very valuable program and something that they've all enjoyed and had fun with. Next slide, please. Again, looking at what we're doing, the state took on a Keep Tennessee Working Week to celebrate workforce development. They highlighted numerous employers across the state looking for employees and hopefully our graduates. So to do this, I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit about what the center did for Workforce Month, but also highlighting just a few of the centers that we have across the state to remind you of the regional work that we're also doing as well. Next slide. So as we celebrated the Workforce Development Month with our 40 colleges, I just want to remind you that we're working every day for a Tennessee trained to make sure that we have Tennessee skilled workforce across the area. Last year, we had 1.2 contact hours of industry training, over 60,000 head count. We are in the middle of compiling the new Tcat report, which we hope to be able to share with you in December. We also hosted Dr. Kevin Fleming. He is The author of the book, I'll show this just a second, The Redefining of the Goal, The True Pathway to Career Readiness in the 21st Century. We sponsored his workshop on Tuesday with over 60 people in attendance and 2 vendors that shared some of their products as well. It's really interesting to listen to him talk about what really is the new economy going forward and how important technical education is, as well as our certifications that we have. So again, a kudos for our workforce representatives who helped to make that happen. And we do have some information if anyone wants to hear more on his particular topic. So I also mentioned that we're going to talk a little bit about our workforce centers. We've got some new regents on the call. Since with COVID, we're not able to visit as many campuses as I know you'd like to see to highlight what some of them have. So this might be a repeat for some, but new for others. But if we can go on the next slide, I wanted just to once again remind you what a jewel we have in McMinnville next to the with the Motlow State Automation and Robotics Training Center. It features nationally recognized industry trainers for the world's leading robot manufacturers. The center is the only facility in the nation that prepares credentialed workers for all 3 of the top robot manufacturers in the world, Avid, Fanuc, and MotoMan. So they each have their specialty, but people come from all over to receive training at this particular center. So Carol, if we could start the video, we're going to take just a quick glimpse of what goes on at this center. If you have not had a chance to visit that, I am sure that they would be happy for you to come by and take a look. They also do PLC, technician training, and automation training. Next slide, please. The next center I want to just recognize briefly is the Northeast Regional Center for Advanced Manufacturing, or better known as RCAM. And of course, this center is an off-site teaching location for Northeast. And it is located downtown in Kingsport, which is known as the Kingsport Academic Village. This center also offers industry certifications in welding, NIMS, Six Sigma, certified production technician, project management, and they also have numerous apprenticeship program partners as well. They partner with Eastman, they partner with lots of different companies in East Tennessee. They sponsor over 270 apprenticeship programs in 14 areas. Just a lot of things going on. They do industry structured training for A.O. Smith in robotics, Snap-on electrical fundamentals in robots, and of course Massey Electric as well. So a great work that they're doing in Northeast as well. The next slide, please. And then, of course, we have my home, which is the Bill Haslam Center, which is a little odd that I would talk about myself, or not myself, but the center. But I do want to remind you of what goes on at this particular center. We have got some exciting things that have been happening and just want to share with you a little bit of that. So if we could play the video. Thank you, Carol. If we could go to the next slide. And certainly, I know everyone's happy to have you to visit those. Two of the new projects that I wanted to talk about at the Bill Haslam Center is the Phillips Corporation is happy to partner with Tcat Murfreesboro at the Smyrna location. Haas, as you know, is the world's largest distributor for Haas Automation. And their staff is there to work with folks and let them see. They actually have 4 pieces of equipment in our machining area. They host different events. We're now a credentialing center for Haas, which is the first in the state. And we also have the opportunity to have, as their customers come in, we get to showcase our students and what we can do across the state. So we're excited about that. We've also entered a partnership with Nissan North America to provide training for their employees in PLCs, safety training. We're also doing some forklift training. And just since the beginning of this particular fiscal year in July, we have served over 200 Nissan employees with the Center for Development trainers. So we're excited about that project. Now, I didn't take you everywhere. Obviously, we have some other wonderful centers across the state. The McMinn Center just opened with Tcat Athens and Cleveland State and the UT Extension. Again, they have a spot for industrial training that can help those companies in those areas get their needs. You've got the Walker Institute with Chattanooga with strong programs there. You've got the programs as well with the Bartlett Center that will be opening soon for the medical device area. So all across the state, not only do we have 40 institutions, but we have some regional training areas that are really second to none. And I just wanted to highlight those as we take a look at workforce development for this month. Next slide, please. Okay, next we're going to talk just a little bit about industry needs and women in the workforce in manufacturing. And I think that it's important to realize that there's just a lot going on. We know that manufacturing is not the dirty business that it used to be. You saw that from the video, how clean it is. But I wanted just to share with you that within the 40 community colleges and technical colleges, the following advanced manufacturing degrees are offered: 27 machine tool programs, 28 welding programs, 11 mechatronics programs, 16 industrial maintenance, injection molding programs, engineering programs, CAD programs, just a litany of different programs that we offer in the advanced manufacturing area. We know that nationwide, women make up about 50% of the workforce. However, in manufacturing, they only make up about 11% of the workforce. And so as we took a look at this, and I prepared a little earlier this summer for a presentation, I got to speak with a lot of different campuses as well as industry and a lot of students about why their women are choosing manufacturing. And some of those reasons were really simple. One young lady told me, she said, I was working on a production line. I kept seeing these people promoted, making a lot more money, and really, I was as talented as they were, and I just thought maybe with a little more education, I could get those promotions as well. And so that is exactly what she did. And so I think that's a good thing, exposing her and letting her know. According to the research from some experts, women tend to listen a little bit better for men for the actual problem and then solve it in a logical way. They realize when it's time to stop and regroup. And they have better fine motor skills. Nothing against our men in the audience, but those are just some things that we were able to talk about. If we could have the next slide, Carol. Again, I listed some of the programs that we have throughout the system. I talked about those. These are just some great photos across the state of our TBR women in manufacturing. One student, Beth Mertz, who was a student at Volunteer State in mechatronics, chose that field as a major because it seemed like a field where she could find a fast-paced job and always continue to learn. So that definitely is right. She has fallen in love with mechatronics and plans on having a long career. What we often find with our mechatronic graduates or engineering graduates or any of our programs, they either one, go directly in the workforce, which of course is what we ultimately want all of them to do, Others go on to get their bachelor's degrees. Others go on to get a master's degree at MTSU, UT Knoxville, Georgia Tech, Purdue. Still others join those companies as machinists, maintenance technicians. They work for great companies around Tennessee. They also join our staff. Rachel Vaughn was a graduate of the Machine Tool Technology program at Tcat Harriman. She was from Fentress County, again, another depressed area. She wanted to change the culture for women, so she decided to go to Tcat Harriman. She went into the machining program. She then went to work in Crossville as a machinist and then came back to Harriman because she wanted to work as a dual enrollment counselor to tell people about what manufacturing can do for women, to sell that story. We've got hundreds of women across our system working in the advanced manufacturing and manufacturing areas. When you look at our numbers, thanks to Melissa Hunter, we have about 16,800 people enrolled in manufacturing programs across the system last year. About 7% of those were women and 93% were male. When you look at the awards, we had about 8% awards in those program areas that went to females and about 92% that were males. Females tended to go more towards the engineering programs, mechatronics programs, and welding. We are seeing an increase in machining. Again, just some ideas about what's going on some of our campuses. And I'll conclude this section with hearing from one of my favorite women in manufacturing, and this is a student from Tcat Dixon. She has graduated. She's got a great job working in Clarksville. And so if we can have the next video, Carol, we'll listen to Kennedy Chappa.
So I was in cosmetology school. Every time I would leave the classroom, I would see the welders because they were right down the hallway. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I just, I fell in love with the idea of it before I fell in love with the actual doing it. I'm not a big risk taker at all. I'm very relaxed, very mild generally. And it was kind of intimidating going in because I knew I would probably be one of the few women in the field. Once you get into it, there's nothing physical about welding. I mean, so much of it is mental, fine motor skills, that kind of stuff. So I am always trying to get other women into the field, constantly trying to, encourage them if they're thinking about it. If I had seen a woman welding when I was a teenager, it might have pushed me too.
I loved her nails. I hope you all saw the embellishments on her nails. Really wonderful young lady who helps to represent thousands across this state and what they're actually doing. So, Chairman, this concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'm also so happy to highlight what our campuses are doing for workforce education, because truly it's making sure that we have those skilled workers that will make a difference in Tennessee. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Excellent report. I think it's important to note that there are a lot of manufacturers around the state who have specific goals to recruit a certain number of females in manufacturing, and Eastman being one of them. So I'm glad to see all these efforts. The young lady was in Nashville that had the bump. What was she studying?
I'm sorry, sir.
The young lady in Nashville that was incarcerated once and now doing very well. I can't remember her name.
She's in an associate degree business program.
Okay.
A business degree. Mm-hmm.
That's a great story. Great story. Thank you for sharing that. So, well, I appreciate everyone participating today. And if no one has any further business, anybody have any questions? Carol?
This is Danny. Can I make a comment? This is Danny. Carol, that was an incredible report, and I love nothing more than hearing the students and seeing what a difference. I mean, it just makes me almost tearful because right now I have missed so much getting to be in person with these students, whether it's doing judging at awards, just every opportunity we get to visit and do that. And so those, when you bring those to us, I think it just really means even more because we just miss seeing them. But your report just got my adrenaline going. It was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. I have the best job in the world. Thank you, Chairman.
Very, very well said, Danny. Thank you for saying that, and I do agree. Any other questions, comments?
Now, I just want to agree with what
further...
Danny said. Coming from my workforce background as well with the Department of Labor, Carol, you're just doing a fantastic job, and it just really excites me with what's going on out there and where the future is going.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Else?
Miles, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. I just wanted to just highlight Carol again. I know she doesn't want to toot her horn, but next week the Rutherford County Chamber is partnering with Carol and Tcat, and Governor Lee will be there to host the We Grow Talent Workforce Summit. So we're just all excited about bringing employers on campus to talk about how we can really utilize our students and get them in our workforce.
We look forward to that.
We had several people attend the Tennessee Chamber event that you all hosted, and they were very favorable comments from them as well. So thank you. Anybody else? Okay, if not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make that motion.
Thank you. A second? Danny second. Okay. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed, like sign? We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Regent Burdine and Dr. Perrier. That was truly an inspirational start to the day. And it also underscores for me, it takes leadership at the top and the commitment that Governor Haslam and now Governor Lee have made to workforce and to our colleges. Boy, what a difference it makes. So we'll keep it up and we'll keep earning their trust. So thank you all. I see, Sandra, that Regent White has joined us. Before I turn this over to Regent Varlin, do you want to ask the questions, so to speak?
I'll be glad to. Regent White.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Okay. I can. And if you can just answer the two questions for me. Can you hear and speak? And then are you alone in your cube?
There are people milling about, but right now I'm alone in my little corner.
All right. But you have your headset on and they can't hear what's going on.
No one can hear other than me with my headset. So.
All right. Thank you very much. Glad you're with us.
Apologize for the delay.
Indeed.
No problem.
Right. So thank you all. With that, Regent Varlin, we are coming your way with the Committee on External Affairs.
Yes, ma'am. So welcome to the External Affairs Committee this morning. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And I'm assuming I have to repeat this, Sonia, that at the beginning of today's committee meeting, members were asked if they could hear and speak with others in the meeting, and were they alone? And during roll call, they all responded yes to both questions. Next, Vice Chair Reynolds determined the necessity of holding each meeting electronically, and the purpose for holding these meetings electronically is because the meetings were scheduled electronically. Board meetings members had planned to meet electronically. Conditions changed rapidly, and it would have been too disruptive to people's schedules to have an in-person meeting. So, the matters to be considered require timely action prior to our board meeting. I'm not sure I need to say this, but we need to ask Sonia to please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regent Apple.
Here.
Regent Green.
Here.
Regent Hatch. I don't believe you've joined us at this time. Regent Powers,
Here.
Chair Varlin,
I'm here.
and Regent Womp. Regent
I'm here.
Womp.
I'm just slow on the click.
That's okay.
Slow on the trigger.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. So seeing we have a quorum, we will proceed. And I am going to call on my Vice Chancellor, Kim McCormick, to proceed with the External Affairs update on government affairs and campus safety and security. And I am sure that she will do a great job following what was an amazing workforce development committee report. So take it away, Kim.
Okay. Well, good morning, Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings, Chair Varlin, members of the committee, and respected colleagues. And I really need to say that I challenged Carol President Pereira, because I think I have the best job and the people that I get to work with in external affairs and with you. So it's a great day for us and a wonderful, beautiful morning. And I'm glad you're joining us with that wonderful trip with your grandbabies this morning. I know it's hard to peel yourself away from that. But today I will.
Can you hear one of them crying right now?
Well, today I'll be providing an update for everyone on our Departments of Government Relations and Campus Safety and Security. So we are very happy to introduce to you all our two new External Affairs staff members. They're Amy Finch and John Williams. And John will serve as the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Government Relations, and he will be leading the Department of Government Relations throughout this next session. Amy will be serving as the Director of Content and Public Relations and is doing so now in the Department of Marketing, Digital Strategy, and Public Relations. And these fulfill our vacancies in external affairs. I can tell you that John comes to us with great experience. He is an attorney who served in legal services for the legislature. He worked very closely with Judiciary Committee, I believe, John, and also both the House and the Senate Education Committees. So he's familiar with our legislators and has already hit the ground running. But the second session, as we all know, of the 112th General Assembly will convene on January the 11th of 2022. And today we would like to share with you our 2022 legislative priorities that we will be going forth with this year. That these priorities have been, and some of you have seen them already, but they have been vetted by the TBR system leadership and by our TBR presidents. The Government Relations Division will advocate on behalf of TBR to the members of the General Assembly. In fact, John will be traveling the state to meet with legislators in their district when possible to do so. I will be joining him as much as I can as well. We have talked about this before, and the priorities are broad-based, and they're done. That's actually done on purpose so that we can be able to fit any needs that our campuses may have into these 6 areas. And if you look at the first, we are always in support of pursuing funding for formula funding, capital outlay, equipment, and program funding requests. And we also, second, is support efforts to expand our college access and affordability to all Tennesseans. 3, we want to further enhance the campus safety and security that we have across, and we'll be talking about that a little bit more in the other department. Looking for resources for technological advancements to improve delivery of curriculum whenever and however necessary. We want to make sure that our institutions are afforded the flexibility and the resources to be nimble in response to the continually evolving academic and personal needs required for our students. And then finally, to encourage systems of faculty recruitment and retention to see that our students are instructed by and exposed to a diverse group of individuals with intense professional understanding and real world knowledge. Again, these are the broad-based categories. We do know we're early in the session as far as bills being filed, but we are starting to see some, and John is monitoring those very closely. We anticipate seeing bills that would, particularly dealing with dual enrollment, that may expand the funding resources for those. We are seeing some that potentially could move toward funding short-term certificates rather than our typical funding right now, to be able to provide. That would help in the case of truck driving, possibly. So those are out there on the horizon right now. Mostly what we're seeing right now is that we're going to be doing a lot of work to go back to that number two, number one, which is pursuing the funding for our institutions and what they're going to be doing. We will be doing a lot of advocacy in that area. So as far as legislative priorities, that's where we sit right now. We look forward to a great year. As you all know, we've had a great track record of being supported by our General Assembly and our administration, and we couldn't be more pleased with that. So, Chair Varlin, if there are no questions, or are there questions? If not, we will move on to our campus safety and security. All right. So several years ago now, a task force was established to assess campus safety and security across our system. Recommendations came from that task force, including a system-level chief. Funds were provided at that time for campus security updates, but the funds were not provided for the chief. Fortunately, last year, thanks to our governor and members of the General Assembly, that position was funded, and we are delighted to have Chief William Kane on board. Chief Kane hit the ground running in this role, and last week, I'm stealing a little bit of your thunder here, Chief Kane, for tomorrow, but last week he appeared before the Post Commission, and I am delighted to say that the commission voted unanimously to affirm him as our chief and to establish our Tbr Police Department. So kudos to him for that great work. And tomorrow morning during the Chancellor's report of the full board meeting, Chief Kane will be providing an overview of the plans to build out the department, and funds will be requested for this effort, and these will be discussed during the Finance Committee meeting with Vice Chancellor Gibbs. But today, Chief Kane will provide you an update on his most recent work. The Department of Homeland Security, working in conjunction with Paul Marshall at Tcat, has reviewed all of our TBR campuses for their current safety and security status. And unless there are questions at this point, Chief Kane will now provide that update on these assessments. Chief
Good morning,
Kane?
Chair Marlin, and by the way, congratulations on the new addition to the family. Also, good morning to members of the External Affairs Committee, other regents, and distinguished guests. I reviewed the safety and security assessments of TBR institutions that are completed. Homeland Security assessments identified several themes are common throughout the reports, and they include landscaping issues impacting safety and security. Now, this is probably the most common and most likely the easiest to correct through maintenance of grounds and removing or trimming of plants. A need for installation and use of Knox boxes to allow after-hours emergency access. A need for the installation of ballistic and impact-resistant film or glaze on windows. A need for building, door, and window numbering to facilitate more efficient emergency responses. The addition of more security cameras or the installation of cameras on campuses without CCTV systems. Access control electronic systems are recommended in several reports. Recommendations for staff and students to wear visible ID badges. A need for better signage, specifically those posted signs about restricted areas. Development of emergency plans and updating existing plans. And finally, there is a continued need for replacement of locking hardware to allow for easy locking of classrooms and other areas from the inside of a room without a key. Only one more campus is scheduled to receive their visit from THEC and Homeland Security, and it will occur September 29th. At this time, we are waiting to receive completed community college reports from Motlow State, Nashville State, and Northeast State. Additionally, the following Tcat reports are not yet received: Crossville, Crump, Dixon, Elizabethton, Harriman, Jacksboro, Murfreesboro, and Nashville. Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions for Chief Kane, Chair Varlin?
Anybody want to ask him anything? Thank you. We look forward to hearing from you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Well, Madam Chair, that's been our overview, but our team continues to work hard, as you all know, in these unique circumstances. And if there are no further questions, that does conclude our update on the Office of External Affairs.
Last chance. These are informational items only, so nothing requires a vote. So if there's no further business to come before the committee, we stand adjourned.
Thanks, you three. Good work as always, Regent Barlin. So, and to Chief Kane, we are very much looking forward to hearing from you tomorrow. And once again, just proud to have you part of the system. So, and what a great accomplishment in getting our post-certification over the finish line. So thank you. We are moving ahead. That's always a good thing. So Regent Green, are you ready for personnel and compensation? Oh, volume.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay. Is it clear?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I've gotten a new computer, so I'm trying to make sure it's working correctly. Can you still hear me well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And we are moving along. I think a lot of us had some scheduling conflicts. I've got golf clothes on, so just pray for me in about two more hours after this meeting. But thank you, Madam Chair. I'm calling the Committee of Personnel and Compensation of the Tennessee Board of Regents to order. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Regent Burdine.
Here.
Regent Hatch. Chair Green.
Hello?
I can see you. Yes, thank you. Regent Varlin.
Yes.
And Regent White.
I'm here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. As we have a quorum, we'll proceed with the first agenda item, which is our faculty emeritus. I will call on Vice Chancellor Russ Deaton for recommended proposals.
Thank you, Regent Green, and good morning, everyone. The item before you is to continue to recommend faculty for promotion to, or faculty to the faculty emeritus status. The first one is going to bring forth several items for you. This is a quarterly agenda item now for the board. You'll recall that the Tbr policy allows presidents to recommend candidates for distinguished institutional service. There's no specific criteria in the policy, but presidents are allowed to recommend retiring faculty for this status based on length of service, their contributions to the college, their academic achievements, and just the way they embody institutional values. There is no monetary benefit to the status, but presidents, of course, are allowed to afford privileges to these folks, for instance, office space, library privileges, etc. This is now, again, a quarterly item. As presidents recommend these faculty to us, we review them first and bring them to you for recommendation. These have all been vetted in accordance with our policy, and we recommend them for approval as faculty emeritus status to you this morning.
Thank you, Russ. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, hearing none, we will call for a motion to accept.
I'll make the motion.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead. I'll second.
Thanks, Dee. Oh, thanks, Miles, and thanks. Sandra, I think you have both of them.
Correct. I show Regent White being on your committee, and then Regent Varlin seconded. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And then, we will have a roll call vote. Right. Sandra, will you proceed?
Thank you. Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Chairman Green.
Aye.
Regent Hatch.
Yes, I'm on board.
Oh, great. Thank you. Well, while we've got you on the line, do you want to answer the two questions?
Yes, I'm present and I can hear and see, and I'm alone.
Thank you so much, and glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
And I will mark you present. And did you vote aye on this motion for the faculty emeritus?
Yes, aye.
Thank you. And Regent Varlin?
Aye.
Regent White?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is faculty promotion recommendation at the Tcat of Shelbyville. And Vice Chancellor Russ Deaton, will you help us understand this recommended proposal?
Happy to. And this one would normally occur in the June cycle. Faculty promotions tend to occur at that one. There was a clerical error, to be honest. That's why this one did not get into the June recommendations. But Tcat Shelbyville Vice President has submitted the materials for Mrs. Jennifer Wright, as seen on the screen here, for promotion from instructor to senior instructor. And the exception in this case is the fact that Mrs. Wright is a Tech Foundations faculty, and normally our policy provides for analysis of completion, licensure, job placement rates to consider a promotion. Of course, the Tech Foundations don't have those features. So everything is in order for Mrs. Wright's promotion to that level. Staff have reviewed it, and we recommend her for this promotion to you today.
Sounds good. Does anyone have any questions? All right, hearing none, we'll call for a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second, it's Tom.
Thanks, Miles. Thanks, Tom. And we will require a roll call vote. Sandra, will you call the roll?
Thank you. Regent Verdine?
Aye.
Chair Green?
Aye.
Regent Hatch?
Aye.
Regent Varlin?
Yes.
And Regent White?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval of faculty promotional increase at Tcat Shelbyville. And I am calling on Vice Chancellor Gibbs to help us understand this recommended proposal.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members. With regard to the faculty promotion that you all just approved, staff recommends that the recipient, Jennifer Wright, receive a 10% salary increase, and this is consistent with the Tcat promotion guidelines for faculty.
Okay, sounds good. Any questions for Danny? All right, hearing none, we will also call for a motion in a second.
Move for
So
approval.
moved, Hatch.
Great, thank you, Joey. And I think that was Miles at second. Thank you to both. And Sandra, you're back on for roll call vote.
Thank you. Regent Verdine?
Aye.
Chair Green?
Aye.
Regent Hatch?
Aye.
Regent Varlin?
Aye.
Regent White?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. And the next and final item on the agenda is executive incentive payment. And Vice Chancellor Danny Gibbs, it's back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To provide some brief history on this one, the Executive Performance Incentive Plan was approved at the June 2013 board meeting. And in that plan, the target salaries for the Chancellor and the Presidents were set at 90% of the market average for comparable positions. And the plan provides, though, an opportunity for these leaders to earn the additional 10% or up to the additional 10% of market value of their respective positions on an annual basis. And that's based on institutional and individual performance. The incentive does not add to the base salaries for the position, and it's recalculated, reevaluated each year. As a reminder, incentive payments were not made last year due to the unknown state of the economy and employees not receiving raises as well. The 10% incentive amount is divided into two components. The first part is a metric-based allowance, which equals to 85% of the 10% amount. And a discretionary allowance is equal to 15% of the total incentive amount. And as a reminder, the primary incentive measurement for community college presidents is the metric-based change in the weighted formula outcomes at each institution. And likewise, the change in total weighted outcomes for all community colleges collectively is calculated and used to calculate the metric-based allowance amount for the chancellor. The chancellor's evaluation is used to determine the discretionary portion, just like it is with the president's as well. As you recall, the performance incentive compensation plan for the presidents was approved back at the June board meeting. So therefore, Madam Chair, based on the outstanding performance evaluation received by the chancellor at the June meeting, and based on the change in the metric-based outcomes, staff's recommendation that the committee approve the recommended incentive payment for the chancellor as presented in the attachment to the transmittal document you received as part of your board meeting materials.
Thank you, Danny. Do we have any questions? Okay, well, we are ready to call for a motion to approve this recommendation and strategies presented.
I'll move for approval.
I'll
Thank
second,
you, Miles.
Tom.
Thanks, Tom, as a second. And we are ready to act on the motion with a roll call vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Chair Green.
Aye.
Regent Hatch.
Aye.
Regent Varlin.
Aye.
Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. If there's no further business to come before the Committee of Personnel and Compensation for the Tennessee Board of Regents has been adjourned.
Thank you, Regent Green, and to the committee for good work this morning. I did want to share with everybody, I think I mentioned this at a previous meeting, but here she is, our woman of influence in the Nashville Business Journal a couple of weeks ago. So great interview, great photograph. Congratulations. You make us proud.
Wow, you're making me turn blush over here. I'm getting all red.
It's gorgeous, Yolanda. What a beautiful photograph. Wow. I'm so proud.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. That was such a humbling experience, and it's amazing women that are there. So I appreciate the shout out. Thank you.
More than welcome. So, and we're also very proud you're chairing the Rutherford County Chamber this year, which I know is what's going to take you away from us here in a bit. So good luck on the golf course with the team today. We appreciate you. Mary Lou.
Yolanda, I'm just sorry.
Oh, sorry, Miles.
So Yolanda, I'm just sorry that Yolanda has to work with Paul Latour.
Oh.
It's a mess.
It takes a village, Miles. It takes a village.
Yeah. That's fun. Right. And you have a beautiful day to be with the chamber folks on the course, so that's great. So, Regent Apple, you have a robust agenda, and it's good that we're running a few minutes ahead. So take it away, my friend.
Thank you very much. And I'll call the Committee on Academic Policies and Programs Student Life to order. And Madam Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
I'll be glad to. Chair Apple.
Here.
Regent Duckett is absent. Regent Shelton.
Here.
Thank you. Regent Varlin.
I'm here.
Good. Thank you. And Regent White.
Still here.
Thank you so much. Chair Apple, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Before we start with the 9 agenda items that we have this morning, we do have one informational item, and I'd call on Dr. Deaton to please present that.
Well, thank you, Regent Apple, and good morning, Vice Chair Reynolds, Dr. Tidings, members of the board. And in Carol, if I could maybe ask us to pause the slideshow just so we can get people back on the screen so I can see them face to face to talk to them about this one, if that's okay, just for a moment. Thank you. Well, and I do want to first, before I get into that one, formally introduce again Dr. Jothany Blackwood, our new Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs, who was introduced to you at committee chairs, but want to formally welcome her to the team, joining us after extensive professional stints in California and Texas. And this is really a homecoming for her because she is a Nashville native and an alumnus of Fisk and TSU. So we are thrilled to have her here. She has either jumped into the deep end or been thrown into the deep end. I'm not sure which one qualifies, but she's definitely picked up and has really started to help us out in so many ways. So Dr. Blackwood, so happy you're with us. As Regent Apple said, I do have one item that has really just come up after the agenda was set, but is one that has some history to it. And I want to remind the board, back in 2019, we brought to you our intent to merge Tcat's Jackson and Tcat Whiteville. This was, of course, for several reasons. Operational efficiencies. Those schools are proximate. They're pretty close. And the authority for this rests in a recently passed law, which does give the Board of Regents the authority to merge or consolidate colleges where there are efficiencies to be had. It's a recent law passed, I think, about 3 or 4 years ago. And so therefore, based on that authority, we began to pursue this, talk to the board about it, and then went back to begin the really heavy lifting of doing the work. Dr. Sisk, who you'll hear from in a moment, really leading this effort along with Dr. Hollins from TBR staff, Jonathan Button, and a whole host of folks. This is now coming to fruition, and there were two main areas we were waiting to get approval. One was from their accreditor, the Council on Occupational Education, who over the summer did approve the merger of these two institutions. And then the second one was from the U.S. Department of Education for a variety of reasons, most notably for financial aid, to begin the process of getting that effectuated. Both of those approvals have happened. The U.S. DOE one just happened about a week ago. We have now informed other partners such as THEC and are ready to really proceed with finalizing the merger. It is really less a point in time than it is a process, as Dr. Sisk can attest to. And this has been a really valuable experience because it has really provided us a playbook. In fact, we are developing a guidebook with flowcharts and more guidance for campuses who might want to pursue this. The next one that we have the intent to formalize this with is merging TCAT's Covington, Ripley, and New Bern, all on the Mississippi River sometime in the coming year or so. So this is one that has come together. I want to ask Dr. Sisk to comment on this, and Regent Apple, if I might be able to suggest to the board to perhaps add this to the unfinished business section for tomorrow to formalize this action once the board fully considers it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Dr. Sisk, if I could ask you to address the board in the merger.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Deaton, Chair Apple, Vice Chair Reynolds. Good morning, Regents and Chancellor Tidings. I'm happy to be here with you this morning. So the Chancellor called me in fall of 2018 and let me know that President Beverly of Tcat Whiteville was retiring. And the Chancellor asked me if I'd be willing to serve as interim president at Tcat Whiteville. That wasn't surprising. That's kind of a fairly standard approach within the Tcat sector. But she threw me a curveball, to use a baseball metaphor here, and she said, I want you to plan and complete a merger to have Whiteville to become a branch campus of Tcat Jackson. So like any good TBR president, I saluted, I said, yes, ma'am, and then we got to work. So it's been about a 2-year process. So beginning in January 2019, we essentially operated Jackson and Whiteville as a merged institution. From a fiscal and an academic perspective, Jackson's VP of Workforce Development and our Allied Health Coordinator served as the academic leadership for the Whiteville programs. Our facilities coordinator at Jackson took over facilities at Whiteville. And all of this, as Dr. Deaton mentioned, fits really nicely into TBR's strategic plan, the key planning initiative on resourcefulness and efficiencies. And an immediate, the merger resulted in approximately $185,000 in savings of eliminating administrative overhead. And out of a $2.1 million budget at Whiteville, that's fairly significant. We reshuffled some staff, and so we've kind of secured about almost $250,000 in realized savings from staffing plans. Vice Chancellor Gibbs and others were pleased that Whiteville's Consolidated Financial Health Index, the CFI score, improved from a 1.69 in fiscal year 2000 end of 2018, 1.69 to a 5.80. And we actually doubled the adjusted unrestricted net assets from a little over $500,000 to a little over $1 million. So the financial health of Whiteville increased significantly. So that's the resourcefulness and efficiency side of it. The other part where it really helped was access, for student access. So we showed slow, steady enrollment gains. Even during a pandemic, we showed enrollment gains there, but where we realized a huge influx of students, we improved dual enrollment numbers at Whiteville and their campuses from 120 to nearly 500 this semester. So we're really excited about that. So the access side is great as well. Dr. Deaton talked about a flow chart, and a hat tip and kudos to Jonathan Button and to Shaka Hollins. Here is that flow chart. It is an 18-step merger flow chart. Some of these are very discrete steps that have to happen consecutively. You can't get DOE approval. You can't even submit a Department of Ed merger application until your accreditor completes everything. But some of the steps are concurrent as well. So, and there's also a political side of this. So we have to have those conversations with our state elected reps, former Senator Dolores Gresham, that's in her area, Representative Johnny Shaw, that's in his area. So we had those conversations at the front end of this and made sure everybody was good with it. And once they realized the resourcefulness and efficiencies and that Whiteville was not going to lose any programs and anything, actually we're reinvesting money into Whiteville's operations to increase access. They were great with it, and they've been very supportive of it. We've got a great team at Jackson and Whiteville, and have tremendous support from TBR Central Office, Dr. Deaton, Jonathan Button, Tashaka Hollins, Angela Flynn, Vice Chancellor Gibbs, Dr. Lemming. There's others that work in those individual offices that have really helped move this along. It's about a 2-year process. A lot of lessons learned on how to do things. We are literally writing a playbook on how to do this, and Jonathan's putting that together even as we speak. He emailed me about midnight last night with a question. So that's really, I'm sorry I didn't prepare a presentation. Dr. Deaton emailed me or texted me a couple of days ago. I just thought I'd share some thoughts and some rough numbers there. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I don't have a question, but I would like to just give kudos to Jeff and all of the system office staff that have worked so very hard on this. He mentioned everything they had to go through, but just imagine in your mind every one of those steps that had to occur very precisely. And I'm so proud of the manual that they're creating. It is the playbook for what we will do with Covington, which they have already started the process. And they are following the steps that Jeff set forward. So I cannot thank him enough for being the good soldier and agreeing to do this from day one. And he has been great to make it a better opportunity for our students. And that was always our goal, to do what was right and most efficient for the communities and our students. So thank you so much, Jeff, and to all of the TBR staff for what you've done on this. It is a big deal, and we're very proud of the work.
Hey, Russ, just this Tom. From a student's perspective, do they see anything much different? Or is this more from our perspective that a lot has to happen?
I would say, and I'm curious, Dr. Sisk, your perspective, I doubt the students, it's seamless for them. There are some mechanical things, of course, that are occurring under the hood, but for the most part, students would barely notice. Dr. Sisk?
Yeah, we're changing Whiteville students to become Jackson students, kind of behind the scenes, but no, it's kind of a seamless process for them. And one thing I neglected to mention, we had to go through an entire reaffirmation of our accreditation process, which if you've ever done that before, that's a self-study, that's hosting a preliminary visit, a site visit from an accrediting team. And the reason that COE does that is they wanted to They wanted the resulting merged institution to have that full 6-year cycle restart. So we got the full reaffirmation cycle. In the Tcats, that's a 6-year period. In the community colleges, it's 10. So yeah, from a student perspective, particularly with all the HERF money coming in, they're seeing new equipment, kind of a revitalized, refreshed faculty, and I think kind of a renewed sense of purpose. So we're excited.
Dr. Sis, thank you. And Regent Apple, I'll throw it back to you for the formal agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Deaton, and thank you, Dr. Sis. That's a lot of work, and we do understand about those accreditation visits. We'll start with our agenda. The first item is the proposed revision to Tbr Policy 2030105, academic retention and readmission for the Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology. And for this proposal, I'll call on Vice Chancellor Heidi Lemming.
Thank you, Chair Apple and members of the Academic Committee. Before you are revisions to the Tbr Policy 2030105. This policy is in respect to maintaining satisfactory attendance and progress in training objectives at the Tcats. It sets out the minimum criteria for evaluating student achievement and has been revised to reflect the alignment with new Title IV definitions. It was approved by our Academic and Student Affairs Subcouncils at their July Subcouncil meeting, and also went to the presidents for their approval at their August meeting. So it's before you now for final approval.
Thank you, Dr. Lemming. Could I receive a motion to approve this?
Regent Varland, so moved.
A second?
Seconds, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Is there any discussion on this item? Madam Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
I'll be glad to. Chair Apple.
Aye.
Regent Duckett. Regent Varland.
Yes.
Regent White.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Reynolds, may I have you join in on the votes for academics, if you don't mind? Vice Chair.
Yes, I'm here. My allergies are just giving me a fit this morning. So but I am a yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We'll move to item 2. This is the proposed new technical program implementations, modifications, and terminations for Tcats. And I would like to call on our Assistant Vice Chancellor, Takika Hollins.
Good morning, Regent Apple, and all those that serve the committee, Madam Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings, all those of the board, and our distinguished guests. As you are aware, Governor Lee and the General Assembly approximated $80 million in this 2021-22 budget to expand Tcat program capacity across in-demand fields to meet the needs of Tennesseans and the state's economy. On behalf of the Tcats, our students, our communities, we are truly grateful for the significant investment in our mission. As a result of the governor's investment, Tcats have responded with 18 new program proposals and program expansions and 27 program modifications. Carol, if you would go to the next slide. Thank you. According to Tbr Policy 2010200, the board reserves to itself the authority to review and approve all proposed actions pertaining to establishment of diploma and certificate programs. Tbr and the board's support of academic program development and expansion promotes the open access, completion, and community and workforce development themes of our strategic plan. This work aligns our Drive to 55 goals and assists us in fulfilling our mission of student success and workforce development. To satisfy the requirements of the Council on Occupational Education, COE, which is the accrediting body for our Tcats, the Office of Academic Affairs has carefully reviewed all proposed program proposals, expansions, and modifications. These proposals are being presented for the board's review and approval. Implementation proposals for each program can be found in your board materials. In the next few slides, I will highlight some noteworthy collaborations and partnerships that support the recommended academic actions that are before you today. Next slide. Tennessee is the home of 3 major assembly plants and a base of more than 900 automotive suppliers that have been the nerve center of the South's automotive sector for nearly 4 decades. Tcat Covington is proposing to implement a new hybrid electric vehicle program in partnership with Tipton County. This new hybrid electric program will aid the school in staying ahead of industry trends and how the transformation to electric vehicles will impact our state, our workforce, and the lives moving forward. Next slide. Tcat Crossville is also committed to meeting industry demands with their proposal to implement a new hybrid electric vehicle program. Crossville previously offered this program, however, inactivated it for a period of time due to a lack of demand. But now, due to the transformation to electric vehicles and the industry in our great state, the school is primed to be responsive, so they are now proposing to bring back their hybrid electric vehicle program. Next slide. The Ruth and Steve West Workforce Development Center, an over 52,000 square feet educational facility scheduled to open its doors in spring 2022, will house academic and workforce efforts for both Tcat Knoxville and Pellissippi State Community College. It is a combined $15 million investment. Other donations from the county and industry also play a significant role in this project. Tcat Knoxville will offer the industrial maintenance, mechatronics, and welding technology programs at this new facility starting in the summer of 2022. Tcat Pulaski is establishing a new instructional service center in Lawrence County. With the new location, Tcat Pulaski will offer the CNC machining technology program. Pulaski has a long-standing successful relationship with the county. Both the city of Lawrenceburg and Lawrence County officials have been extremely helpful and are grateful to house the program. As a part of this partnership, the city and the county will cover the cost of moving all program equipment, storing the equipment, and renovating the space. The facility is over 4,000 square feet and formerly housed the Murray, Ohio manufacturing plant. As you can see, these proposed actions allow the Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology to be more responsive to the needs of students, businesses, and industries. We respectfully request the board's approval, and I'm available to answer any questions that the board or the committee may have.
Thank you, Tashika. Let's ask for a motion and second and then go to discussion. Do I hear a motion?
So moved, Tom.
Thank you, Tom, and a second.
Danny Barlin, second.
Thank you, Danny. Now, do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, then I'm going to call for a roll call vote. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair Apple.
Aye.
Regent Varlin.
Aye.
Regent White.
Aye.
And Vice Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Tashika. Good report on that. We'll move to the third item, institutional mission profiles. This is a synopsis of the profiles, and I would like to call on Executive Vice Chancellor Russ Deaton.
Thank you, Regent Apple. So this item, members of the board, is an annual item that comes before you that is the presentation of community college mission profiles. This was first called for in the Complete College Tennessee Act of 2010 and was reiterated in the Focus Act of 2016. And the commission requires these profiles because they put them to use in several ways. They use them as a guide in the outcomes-based funding formula development. It can also be used in campus strategic plans. And as the commission considers any new academic actions, they take a look at these profiles to make sure that the actions are consonant with that campus's mission. Now, these are distinct, excuse me, from the campus mission statements, which we'll get to later on. These are broader profiles. They really try to just reflect the identity of the campus. Several things you will see in these profiles, and in the materials you'll note we provide both last year's profile and revisions with this year's recommended profile, most of which are very similar in language, but just with some tweaks to data and some changes here and there. But for the most part, they're similar. But these profiles, again, try to reflect the school's open access mission, try to reflect their service area, unique programmatic aspects that each campus has, and just really what makes it unique and how it serves its local area. These are, again, updated annually, and we also try where we can to suggest a presence that they weave in certain distinguishing features. Like, for instance, you will notice that the Southwest profile this year references their Bellwether Award for Planning, Governance, and Finance that they won this past year. Roane State's profile has their Achieving the Dream Leader College distinction that they earned this past year as well. So things and features like that are woven into the profiles. But again, these have been reviewed by staff. The presidents have then put the final touches on them and sent them to us. We recommend them for approval today, and if so, we will then dutifully transmit them to THEC per the statute.
Thank you, Dr. Deaton. Do I hear a motion? There's so few of us, so I know you feel
I hate
bad
to be
about keep
hog, but
using.
I'll go ahead and
We'll make a motion. Okay, can I get one of you? Danny, would you be a second for that?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Now, are there any discussion items or any discussion needs to take place? Thank you, Russ. I think that these are a lot of updates and things that we've seen before. We appreciate that. So let's call for a roll call vote, Madam Secretary, to approve these.
Thank you. Chair Apple.
Aye.
Regent Garland.
Aye. Yes.
And Regent White.
Aye.
And Vice Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The fourth item is Strategic Plan Metrics Dashboard, and I would like to call on our Executive Vice Chancellor, Russ Deaton, to present this.
Thank you, Regent Apple. And this one, of course, will be an extension of our June discussion around the strategic plan. And you'll recall at that discussion and presentation, we included metrics to give us a sense of how well the board is fulfilling the goals of the plan, how well it's meeting degree targets, et cetera, and wanted to then build out a dashboard that really reflects what those metrics are. And in doing so in such a way, as we've described internally, as sort of a front porch to the data. Obviously, you're about to see extensive data coming up on enrollments and graduates. TBR has voluminous resources about that for the user. But we wanted the dashboard to be sort of the front porch to that, to provide a very straightforward, sort of simple, high-level overview of these metrics that were approved by the board that reflect the pillars of the strategic plan in a very accessible way for the public. And then, of course, if folks want to go deeper, they can do so at their pleasure through the resources we have on our website. But what we're going to bring before you today is that dashboard that accompanies the strategic plan that dives into the metrics. And I want to ask Dr. Amy Moreland to walk us through this. She led the design work on this. And Dr. Moreland, with that, let me ask you to walk the board through some highlights of the dashboard.
Thank you, Dr. Deaton, and good morning, Regent Apple, Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings, and members of the committee. As Dr. Deaton mentioned, earlier this year, when the board adopted revisions to the TBR strategic plan, you'll recall that that plan included a series of metrics, each of which were designed to allow the board to track the system's progress and measure how well we are addressing each pillar of the strategic plan. Those metrics emerged from deliberations of the Strategic Plan Steering Committee and were approved by the board in June. After the adoption of the strategic plan revisions by the Board of Regents at the June quarterly meeting, we then set out to create the interactive strategic plan metrics tool that Dr. Deaton mentioned. This tool is meant to collect all of the relevant metrics for our system's progress in one place, but also serve as a gateway to other rich data resources that are relevant to the strategic plan. The Interactive Strategic Plan Metrics tool is now available through the TBR website. And today we would like to quickly share with you how to access that tool and provide you with a very quick tour of the tool. To begin, to access the Interactive Metrics tool, first you will need to visit the Strategic Plan webpage on the TBR website. And you hopefully are now seeing that website on your screens now. From there, you'll see a blue button that says Strategic Plan Metrics. And if you click on that button, an interactive dashboard will launch on your screen. When you first arrive at that dashboard, you'll see an overarching metric related to each of the key pillars of the TBR strategic plan. As you'll recall from June, the strategic plan described 3 pillars of the system's work. Those pillars also serve as the foundation for the strategic plan metrics. So first, there are metrics related to the open access mission of the system's community and technical colleges. Second, there are metrics that reflect the system's commitment to students' completion of post-secondary credentials. And third, there are metrics related to the role that the colleges play in improving their communities and contributing to workforce development. From here, if you click on the button at the bottom of each section, you can view detailed metrics related to that pillar. For example, we can take a quick look at metrics related to TBR's open access mission. Here, along the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a menu of metrics related to college enrollment and our open access mission. You can click on any of these buttons to see metrics or see data related to that particular metric. The metrics associated with the open access pillar include things like enrollment broken down across multiple dimensions, like metrics that show the rise of dual enrollment by high school students, the number of first-time students, adult students, etc. So for example, if we select dual enrollment here, we can quickly observe the significant rise in the number of dual enrolled high school students over the past 6 years. And then using filters along the right-hand side of this screen, you can drill down, for example, to see data just for community colleges, or here we'll select Tcats, and you can see data specific to those institutions. You'll also have the ability to filter the data by demographic groups. Next, if you wish to view metrics from another pillar of the strategic plan, the navigational bar at the top allows you to jump to other sections of the tool. So for example, if we visit the completion section, you can view data related to our progress toward the state's drive to 55. You can also see data on credentials earned, success rates, and other leading indicators of student success. For example, here, you're seeing the goals that were set forth for the system in the state's drive to 55 and college's progress toward those goals. One additional thing you might notice throughout the tool is a series of informational buttons in the top right-hand corner of each screen that provide us more information about what you're seeing and background about these metrics. Lastly, throughout the Strategic Plan Metrics tool, you'll also notice that while this is designed to provide a quick high-level overview, it's also, again, meant to help connect you to additional data resources that let you dig deeper into any of these topics. So for example, here we've jumped to the community and workforce section where you'll see metrics related to the system's economic impact on the state, students' job preparation, and even the relationship between our system and the community and economy. So for example, if we select the job placement metric, this screen provides you with really high-level information about students' placement into careers. But you'll also see a box in the lower right-hand corner of this page that connects you to additional information like interactive dashboards that allow you to take this same metric, but dig even deeper to, for example, see trends by college or program of study. In other words, this strategic plan metrics tool is meant to be a gateway or a bridge to more detailed information that is available publicly. And as you see here in the remaining metrics in this section, like data about the program warranty or the community and economy, you'll again see these links in the bottom right-hand corner to go and explore even more information. Lastly, the final page here connects you directly with other rich data resources, including a series of more detailed interactive dashboards. You can always, as a reminder, directly visit the more detailed interactive dashboards just by going to tbr.edu/data, which takes you to the page you see here that includes many more dashboards, college profiles, and links to other TBR research and data resources. If we return to the strategic plan metrics tool one more time, we do intend to update this multiple times throughout the year as additional data becomes available to continue monitoring our system's progress towards key goals throughout the life of the strategic plan. This is just an informational item, but I would be happy to address any questions that you might have about the strategic plan metrics or this particular tool.
Does anyone have questions?
I don't have a question, but I just thank you. That was very helpful. You were easy to follow. You did a really good job on taking us through, which just viewing could seem complicated, but it isn't. And I just appreciate it. That was really nice. Thank you.
Just a quick question about how we'll promote this so that it's great information and hopefully people see it, but how do we plan to do that?
Regent White, it's a good question. A couple of things, and we have now printed out both poster size and trifold handouts, the strategic plan itself, the document that this board acted on in June. And we also want to make sure that as we're talking to, whether it's lawmakers, business partners, our colleges, to draw them to where these metrics are. Most of our partners are familiar with our data, but they're not familiar yet, of course, with this. We hope to make sure they're aware that they can quickly see a high-level look at where we are, where we stand on these metrics by going to this link. Again, it is linked directly onto that strategic plan website, the URL. We are going to publicize this. We printed off several thousand versions of the trifold and the posters for our campuses, for our K-12 partners, et cetera. So hopefully over the coming months and years, this gets quite a bit of play. Also, too, following up from Vice Chair Reynolds, your request in June, we're going to be sending the strategic plan and a link to the metrics here to each member of the General Assembly and the governor's staff in short order so that they're aware of the work that's been done also.
And also, is the information, can it be split out by school, or is it just kept in the aggregate for these purposes?
On the dashboard, it's just at the aggregate. The links to the more detailed profiles and college level dashboards would be the way for the user to see campus level data.
And can you get this by going through individual schools' websites?
Not yet, but we should do that. Actually, that's a good idea. Yeah, right now the way through it, the way to it is just through the TBR website. But I think we could definitely ask the colleges to make sure they link back to this and to the data as well. That's a good suggestion.
A lot of good work.
I want to echo the other members' remarks about this to you and Dr. Moreland, because this really is demonstrating that our strategic plan is a really fluid working document. And I think we forget sometimes that everything we do relates back to this document. And I think Dr. Deaton's team is doing a great job, and we're going to try to be even more intentional about demonstrating everything we're doing relates back to this plan. And you'll see it again because 2025 is almost here. And as you see, we will be updating this again. And I think we just finished that, Russ, but I just really appreciate it mainly because for the transparency and the accountability. And those are two things the public wants to see. And kudos, because this is demonstrating that. And I encourage all the board members, and especially if you're a new board member, to get in here, because sometimes we're not aware of all of the initiatives that are going on because there's so many. And Dr. Moreland, I know you could have spent the rest of the time talking about all the things that are going on, because there's so much depth to what she just presented. So I really encourage you to go in there and just discover all the great things that are going on. Well, this was informational, and if there's no other comments, we'll move on. Russ, did you start to say something?
No, ma'am. I just wanted to echo what you said and thank Dr. Moreland for her work on this. And members of the board, you will see us in both this meeting and in future meetings connect back to you both verbally and visually where various initiatives you hear about are connected to the strategic plan. You'll see us make those connections, which hopefully kind of gives it a little more life over the coming years.
Excellent. Great work. Okay, moving along to this busy agenda. The fifth item is review and consider approval of Nashville State Community College's strategic plan. And again, I'll call on Executive Vice Chancellor Russ Deaton, please.
Thank you, Regent Apple. So this, board members, is an item that you will become very familiar with over the coming year as campus-level strategic plans come before this body for consideration and approval. A little bit of background here. Now that the board system level plan is in place, we have asked colleges to, as they develop their own campus strategic plans, to connect theirs to the TBR plan, to extend those ideas where applicable, not necessarily replicate its exact structure or its details, but just to have it philosophically connect and extend back with the system level strategic plan. We've asked each president to begin that process, or if they were already in process concurrent with our review, to then bring that back before the chancellor for her review, and then of course before this body for consideration. This is consistent with expectations from SAC COC and COE, and we hope over the next year to bring you again various campus plans in consideration of that. This plan for Nashville State, first one out of the chute, has been reviewed by staff and the chancellor. And I want to, in a moment, introduce Dr. Jackson to walk you through it. And I want to say, by editorial comment, if I may, this is a great one to begin with because this one has been exceptionally well thought out. Dr. Jackson and her team engaged the campus and the broader community in this plan, and it really does, I think, provide a roadmap for the college, reflective of course, the TBR plan as its foundation. So with that, Dr. Jackson, if I can turn the mic to you to present the highlights of Nashville State Strategic Plan.
Thank you, Dr. Deaton, and good morning. I am excited. Good morning. I am excited to share Nashville State's new strategic plan, Vision 2030, a student-ready college. The slides that were provided in your material are actually a document that we call Plan on a Page, so that it all fits on one page. It provides a very high-level overview of the new strategic direction for the college and sets the frame for where we will focus our efforts for the remainder of this decade. A more detailed plan with key metrics, strategies, and annual goals, and a dashboard similar to what you just saw will be developed each year to help us track our progress towards Vision 2030. As Dr. Deaton mentioned, this plan is a culmination of work that actually began in the summer of 2018 when I first arrived and Nashville State joined ATD. From those early dreaming sessions of what we as a college wanted for ourselves, our students, and our communities, to seeking intentional input from a variety of sources, such as college-wide surveys, a dedicated large cross-functional team, and small group SWAT sessions that occurred on multiple campuses, which involved not just employees, but students and community members. This is truly a shared vision. The title of our plan, A Student-Ready College, is a reflection of the transformation needed at Nashville State to achieve our bold agenda. We have already begun making the shift from being a college-ready model, where the student had to be ready to succeed by being academically prepared, able to make quick adjustments to college, and also have access to external supports, to a Nashville State that stands ready to serve the students where they are, barriers and all, through completion by providing the academic and non-academic support they need to succeed. Now, of course, the original intent was to launch Vision 2030 in 2020, when the college celebrated its 50th anniversary. But the delay worked in our favor. As you can see, our strategic focus areas are aligned to the new TBR strategic plan. Our plan cements Nashville State's commitment to both the opportunity and obligation we have as a college to eliminate inequities in educational attainment and economic mobilities in the communities we serve. And of course, I'm not planning to read this plan to you, but I do want to highlight a few things that you see on this first slide. Our vision. Nashville State did not have one before this plan was created, and we have set our sights on being a national leader because of who the Nashville region competes against in economic development. And it is our charge to produce the diverse workforce needed to keep the economy vibrant and thriving. Our mission statement was revised to better align to the overall plan, and our equity statement was created from our ATD work. If you could click the next slide. Another new addition was the development of our core values, which you will see when the slide transfers. It hasn't transferred on my side. Spells leads. They are a significant driver in establishing a student-ready culture. And we are using them to connect each department and each person to Vision 2030. In fact, we use leads to conduct our first data summit for all employees during fall convocation, and we are designing our professional development programming around them as well. We believe when Nashville State leads, students succeed. And then our next slide will be our 4 strategic focus areas that closely mirror TBR's. We know as a college, we must significantly increase access and improve student outcomes. And because we are deeply committed to closing equity gaps, it was important to state so in the student-related focus areas. One thing I want to lift up is that Nashville State completion is no longer our ultimate goal. It is post-completion success. We recognize that the true value of our college isn't just how many students persist and complete, but how well students perform when they leave here in the career entry programs for which they were trained, or did they successfully transfer and complete their 4-year degree. It is also true for community and workforce development. If we are not producing graduates or completers in workforce programs for existing and emerging needs, we are not doing our jobs well. We are currently conducting a workforce viability study that will help us assess what programs we should keep offering, stop offering, and what programs we should create. The final piece of this plan are the 2030 targets, and that is the last slide. Again, we will have a much more robust set of metrics, and we will disaggregate data to keep our focus on closing equity gaps. And one thing I didn't share before, Vision 2030 embeds our ATD and SEM and other college plans. So all those strategies and metrics associated with those plans will feed into Vision 2030. It was really important to simplify and consolidate our plan for clarity. So we now have one that recognizes the alignment of the work happening to create a student-ready college. That is why we also wanted to keep our Vision 2030 targets high level and simple. So this document has the high level goals. There are 4 numbers to remember: 10,000, 90, 60, and 30. And I will start with the last number. Nashville State currently has the absolute lowest 3-year graduation rate for first-time full-time students in the system at 17%. That is clearly not acceptable to me, to our college, nor should it be to anyone on this call. While the average at TBR is 25%, our plan is to be the leader, not just in the state, but nationally. So we are setting our first target at 30%. 30%. Once we set that target, we just simply worked backwards from there. In order to achieve the 30%, we believe we must improve our fall-to-fall retention rate to 60%. It is currently 47%. And then our fall-to-spring persistence rate to 90%. It is currently 75%. And as we increase those numbers, it will impact our ability to retain more students as we add new ones each semester. Therefore, our target for enrollment is set at 10,000, a number the college has seen before and we will see again. We know that we have much work to do to see such significant gains, especially considering the continued impact of COVID to enrollment and retention. But this work is too important not to keep moving forward. Because at the end of the day, these numbers represent real people with real lives. And as I always say, education, it doesn't just impact the lives of the individual student, but their families and our communities. We believe our Vision 2030, a student-ready college plan, provides the strategic framework to lift communities out of poverty, place people on a stronger path of economic mobility, and establishes Nashville State as a premier workforce solution partner for the region. Thank you.
Well, I think we should stand up and applaud Dr. Deaton.
Amen. Amen to that.
Hey, Chair Apple, this is Regent Hatch. I know I'm not on this committee, but could you give me about 60 seconds to comment?
Absolutely.
So as I'm now entering my 49th year of being connected to Nashville State Community College, I will tell you that we are so delighted to have Dr. Jackson leading us there. She included so many people in the community on this work. I also got my card about 2 or 3 weeks ago, so I'm excited to have that. And I really didn't get, when she first got there and started talking about meeting the students where they were instead of expecting them to be ready for where the school was. But as I've seen that play out over the next 2 or 3 years, or last 2 or 3 years, what I now understand is that's exactly what made it so successful when I was there so long ago. And we took that for granted because there were so many people that could help us. And she's getting the school back to that, and the students really need that. So I applaud her, and I feel really good about these goals and the fact that we're shooting to beat most of them. So thanks, Dr. Jackson. Woohoo.
Thank you, Regent Hatch. Couldn't say it any better.
Dr. Deaton, this is Regent Gill. I'm not on the committee either, but may I take a few minutes and talk to Dr. Jackson?
Of course.
Dr. Jackson, you probably may not remember our visit several years ago, but you were doing exactly what you said you would do, and I'm really pleased with your approach. The post-completion success focus is absolutely critical. It's not how many we get through the system, it's how many we get through the system and they become successful. And I thank you for that. And you are right. We are dealing with real people with real lives. And so this data isn't just numbers on a page, but it's people who are our fellow participants down this road of life. I want to specific, if you may not be aware, but my role on this board seems to be that I throw fecal material in the punch bowl from time to time. And ask them, oh, look at Vice Chair. She said it all. But I want to ask you about a specific problem that you and I talked about when we were there last, and one that is somewhat unique to Nashville State, and that is is that many of your potential students come from a K-12 system that is just deplorable, for lack of a better term. And I'm going to throw out a couple of terms here, and this is research that I've done on my own, and these are on the eastern half of Davidson County on the clusters. Hunters Lane High School has a success rate cluster of 7.3%. Maplewood is 8%. Stadford STEM is 7.2. McGavock High is 11.9. Antioch is 7.7. Cane Ridge is 9.2. That's the entire eastern half of Davidson County. Those are where your students come from. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's criminal. And given the ethnic composure to it, I consider it racist. But I know that you are trying to take that and make something out of it. Can you expand on how we make up for that deficiency in those people's lives, and how that you take them up that very, very tall, steep mountain to help accomplish that? Because I know you think about it, and I think you may be someone who can come up with some answers. So anyway, with that, I'll listen.
Thank you, Regent. I will just quickly, hopefully briefly, state that we can't wait till they get here to start the work. And so right before the pandemic in March, Dr. Battle, who's the director of schools, and I signed a joint venture called Better Together. And Better Together is a very clear partnership between Metro Schools and Nashville State to improve college and career readiness for Metro School students and college completion at Nashville State. And there are many foundational pieces to that if I'd be happy to share directly with you, Regent, or also at another time, that are components. And it's not just your traditional, let's do more dual enrollment or dual credit. We actually have a faculty collaborative that we are working to lift up teaching and learning and have a shared understanding about it. We're talking more about what the clear expectations are for students, but you're going to see more and more information coming out about the Better Together partnership, because it is very true that if we wait until they get here, even with summer bridge programs, the deficiencies are very difficult to overcome. Another part of our work that is just in Davidson County, and we are still thrilled to have received an award for our partnership with Nashville Grad. That is only for Davidson County students, and it is very intentional about the wraparound services that we provide. So we are working very hard with our K through 12 partners all across the system, but particularly with Metro, where we have our greatest challenges, to try to address those deficiencies very early and then build more supports for them when they get here.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson.
Well, Dr. Jackson, that was just amazing. You have set the bar really high, and we're so proud of what you're doing. This will require a roll call and motion and second decision on this. So I'll call for a motion.
So moved. It's Tom.
Second. Oh, thank you. And now, is there any further discussion now for Dr. Jackson or Dr. Deaton?
Great work.
I agree. Okay, we'll call for, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just said thank you. I appreciate all the comments, especially, I know that I can always count on Regent Hatch, but I appreciate the other comments as well.
Yes. Madam Secretary, could we do a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. Chair Apple.
Aye.
Regent Barlin.
Enthusiastic aye.
I will make sure. And then Regent White.
Aye.
And Vice Chair Reynolds.
Absolutely aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
That's amazing. And Dr. Deaton, I know we're going to be hearing from other colleges, and there's a lot of work that's going on behind the scenes to for those colleges to be able to present and get ready to provide their statements, but we really appreciate the beginning plan of that. We'll move to item number 6, TBR Mission Statement. And for that, again, I'd like to turn to Dr. Deaton.
Yes, ma'am, happy to. And on the National Strategic Plan, let me also thank Dr. Jackson. There's a lot of pressure going first, and I think she led off the game really well with that. And you will have more of these coming over the next year or so, members. So now to the TBR mission statement. This is the last of this sort of grouping of items that's related to the strategic plan. And this one is really sort of an exclamatory statement after the June board meeting, because we've got the strategic plan ready, the metrics are now in place, but what we want to add to that now is a formal declaration and approval of the TBR mission statement. And for this, I'm going to reference the oft repeated phrase that Chancellor Tidings has used, I think really since the day she arrived, that TBR's mission, when you boil it down, is student success and workforce development. That phrase is brief. It resonates with lawmakers. It's one that really captures the essence of who we are, and we felt it was appropriate to recommend to the board that we formally adopt that as the TBR mission statement. That phrase is used on the strategic plan website now. It's in the text embedded, but we'd like to go ahead and formally declare it our mission statement. So with that, Regent Apple, would open up for questions, but that's the recommendation from the staff.
All right. Any questions at this point? I think we've been so used to using it, Russ, we forget that it's not formally in there.
That's right. That's
but
right.
Thank you for bringing that up. Let's ask for a motion then in a second. I'm sorry, guys, that you're the only ones here. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so moved.
Second, Danny.
Thank you, Danny. Now, is there any discussion on this? Okay, Madam Secretary, this does require a roll call vote.
Thank you. Chair Apple.
Aye.
Regent Barlin.
Yes.
Regent White.
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, you'll get a little reprieve right now while we go to 2 that are just report items. So number 8, a report on open educational resources, and I call on Associate Vice Chancellor Robert Den.
Oh, thank you, Regent Apple. Good morning, committee members. Chancellor Tidings, I would like to share my screen, please. One moment. Can you all see my slide, please?
Yes.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to present on open educational resources. You'll recognize 2 of the pillars on the strategic plan, open access and completion, what I call the starting line and the finish line. However, there's a major roadblock of the cost of textbooks and other materials that students have that directly impact their ability to gain access and also to complete their degree programs. You can see those statistics there. 2/3 of students don't even buy the materials. And you can imagine trying to do the work without having the proper academic tools to do it. So there is a solution to this problem, and it's called open educational resources. And the Hewlett Foundation has the best definition, I think, for OER. There are resources that reside in the public domain, and there's no copyright, that faculty and students can access them at any time, and what we call the 5 R's are retain, reuse, revise, remix, and redistribute. And they can be used in perpetuity and changed by faculty whenever they decide. So last year, one of the components of our OER advancement is the grant program that we started in cooperation with the Office of Organizational Effectiveness, Dr. Wendy Thompson, using access and diversity funds. And cycle 1 last year saw 12 project teams awarded funding from 7 colleges and involving 47 faculty professional staff, including librarians, instructional designers, student services staff, and we awarded over $300,000 for those teams to transition their courses to be OER supported. So successful that we had a cycle 2 this year, and it grew to 19 project teams at 11 colleges with 72 faculty and professional staff. Now, to give you an idea of the magnitude of the impact of cost savings for students, just for the courses in Cycle 1 that were developed last year and are being offered this fall term, the current term we're in, just for those students this year in those 12 courses, they're going to save over $1 million. So you can imagine, as this thing expands to other courses and other sections and other colleges, how much money this is going to save students. And there's often a conventional wisdom that universities lead us and the community colleges follow, but not so in this case with OER. Tennessee Technological University was awarded a Cycle 2 OER grant through Tbr Access and Diversity Funds, and they the 6 LGIs are included in the Access and Diversity funding model. And they had these 8 courses just from their university. And when I talked to the dean over there as my point of contact, he told me that they were doing nothing in the OER space. He knew of no professors who were using OER. And when they heard about this grant opportunity, internally he had 30 faculty teams apply to participate. Obviously, we couldn't fund all of them. But this is, again, where we're leading the way in Tennessee as TBR institutions in a system. And one thing that I'm most excited about is the inter-campus collaboration that we're seeing with this. We had 3 faculty members who are leading teams from 3 different community colleges to redevelop an anthropology series of courses to be OER supported. And they're doing that now. A couple of years ago, when we published a white paper that was kind of exposed the challenges that students had in affording textbooks and other materials, got the attention of the governor's office and THEC, and we were tasked to collaborate with THEC to launch the textbook affordability task force, and out of that came the launch of Tennessee Open Education this March, which is kind of the enterprise, statewide enterprise that's advancing OER in the state for all colleges and universities. And a component of that is what we're calling the hub. It's an online collaborative platform where faculty can get together to share these resources, to build them together, and then of course serves as a repository where these materials can be shared among the faculty around the world. And all the colleges and universities in Tennessee are participating. You can see these working groups on your screen here. The LGIs, the Tacua University, UT System campuses are all part of this Tennessee Open Education Hub. But it doesn't really do any good unless the students know about it. And these 3 community colleges are part of our pilot this year, Rome State, Southwest, and Motlow, that we're calling the OER Designator Pilot, where in the system registration, in the banner interface where students go in to register for their courses, they can see, for instance, if I'm a student and I know I need to take a topic in World Lit and Asian Literature as part of my degree program, and I pull up all the courses that are offered at Southwest, and I can see that section 81676 offered on Thursday at 9:10, over on the right, you can see the attribute where it's a 0 textbook cost. Well, that gives me option, that gives me a choice as a student whether I want to choose that section or not. So it's all about student choice. We have 3 community colleges that are doing this, and we hope to expand to all of our community colleges that will have this attribute, this designator, where students can make an informed choice about the sections that they want to take. And not only are we leading the universities in this space, but also the K-12 sector. We are all very pleased with SB 482, which has passed this past legislative session, which funds 4 DE courses for all students. However, a student registers for this course, for instance, Biology 2010, which is anatomy and physiology, and they learn about the textbook cost of $216. I have firsthand experience. Hundreds of students that drop the course when they find that the textbook might as well be $1 million, $216. And so what we're doing is we're working, we have faculty members that are developing SDC text for our statewide dual credit courses in world history and plant science. So these things will be free for our students. And the plant science book is going to be the first OER available that we can see anywhere in the country. But all of this means nothing if the faculty are on board, and the faculty are on board. I'm not going to read all of these, but these are some of what quotations that the faculty have given as part of their final grant reports. It's adapting to students' needs, tapping into their motivation for reading. It has impact for student learning, not just cost. And it's energizing the faculty to be able to reach their students more diverse in class activities. And one of these quotations really caught me is the one in the middle there, where the students couldn't afford to get the courseware, which is tied to their assessment, and they were trying to take the assessment without the content, and the professor felt like she was failing her students. And here's some more, and this thing is catching on so much and going so viral that we had teams at Pellissippi who had t-shirts printed up for all their faculty and staff with a little QR code. So you have students holding up their phones to these shirts so they can go to access these free materials. So we're very excited about the expansion of OER and making things more affordable, impacting student learning, and increasing the access and completion rates across the system. And Regent Apple, that concludes my presentation. It is informational, but I'm glad to take any questions.
Thank you. Amazing. And what a demonstration of responsibility on the part of the institutions to really look and remove the obstacle for students. Any comments for Dr. Den?
Dr. Apple, this is Ramona. Can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
I can actually back this up from firsthand faculty experience. In my department, in the history department, we only have one class that still uses a traditional textbook. So, I mean, we're looking at what, 90% of our classes that are using either OER or instructor created materials that are provided freely to the students. When we pivoted into the, fully online world, that was one thing that benefited our students. Mm-hmm. People did not realize exactly how much students relied on the reserved copies of textbooks in the library.
Right.
And the fact that our history students had access online, which that's a total another, issue altogether, the students that didn't have, good access to the internet. But our history students didn't have to do that. And we saw increased history student success rates. And I think that OER is a huge part of that.
Excellent. And you're so right, Regent Shelton, because a lot of people don't understand that at these institutions, faculty do actually, we purchase textbooks and put in the library for all the students who can't purchase and want to, where they can be loaned to students so they have some access. So you're so right. That's amazing work, and to see that the success rate improved by what you're doing. That's great. Dr. Regent Shelton, too, I hope that you and Dr. Den also truly send our thoughts and our appreciation back to the faculty, that we recognize them for accepting the challenge to do things differently, but things that would help remove the obstacles for our students, and how much we appreciate that work.
Definitely.
Thank you. We'll move now to our item 8. Again, this is a report only on enrollment and graduation. And Dr. Deaton, you're back up.
Thank you, Regent Apple. And one more postscript to what Robert presented. There are so many great examples across the system of programs that exemplify the strategic plan, innovation, collaboration, focusing on access and completion, and that's one of them. And I want to thank Dr. Den for his leadership on that for us. Getting into then the enrollment and graduates update for this fall, and by preface here, of course, this presentation you're about to see is weeks in the making, if not months. But the data that feeds it is really hours in the making, because it really comes into us earlier this week on Monday. And I want to thank the entire research and data team for the work they do to get it from its raw form into what you're going to see today. It takes a lot of effort. It's a swift and heavy lift, and I thank each one of them for the work they do to get it to this stage. So to jump in, and you're going to see the structure of this update organized. If we can go to the next slide, please, Carol. Around the strategic plan. We're going to sort of structure the updates you're going to see across these 3 pillars that by now you're familiar with, if you haven't yet even gotten them tattooed on your shoulder. And so first we'll go into the access section. We'll save that one for later, I suppose. And so getting in, you're going to see a data here that looks at enrollments broken down by various demographics, race, gender, etc. So to go to the next slide, please, Carol. To jump right into it, first the national context, and you'll recall from our presentations to this board in the last year or so that Tennessee's not alone, which is of some comfort, but enrollments are falling at community college systems nationwide. Last fall, across the U.S., that was about a 10% decline in enrollment. Even our university counterparts are struggling to some degree with enrollment and are trying to find ways to increase it. Not quite as much struggle as we're facing, but even they're not immune to it. And last fall, we saw about a comparable decline in that enrollment number. We fell about 10% in enrollment, which is around 9,000 or 10,000 students. Again, comparable to the national data as well. This fall, there's continued pressure on community college enrollments. Those enrollments are falling, as you see there in the middle of that box, 8.8% from last fall. So over the 2 years, that represents about 16,000 fewer students who are enrolled at the community colleges than there were pre-pandemic. On the Tcat side, a bit of a different story. You'll recall that last fall, Tcats were essentially flat. There was a small decline when the dust settled of about 2%. But this fall, we're seeing early signs that Tcat enrollment is up, almost approaching double digits. In fact, as of today, it's up about 9.5%. This is a number that changes, of course, daily. So we're seeing some good signs on the Tcat side. Next slide, please, Carol. So to put that in historical context, you can see the community college enrollment declining the last 2 years, again, really facing pressures from the pandemic. One note about these enrollments, and this is always the case, but even more so this year for reasons I'll get into. These are, of course, estimates. These are preliminary numbers. As the semester unfolds, you're going to see increases in enrollments, particularly as students continue to register, as data gets entered into the banner system. There's always reasons we see for enrollments to tick upwards by a percentage point or two over the course of the semester, and that's especially true in the Tcat sector, which I'll get into here in a moment. This year, though, that's even more so the case. We're going to see enrollments grow over the semester, primarily because of some policy innovations you're seeing at the campuses. Go to the next slide, please, Carol. And that is the use of what's called accelerated courses. And in the main, there's several permutations of this, but the main one that I'm going to focus on here is the use of 2 7-week terms within the traditional fall or spring semester. So basically the semester would be broken up into 2 halves of 7 weeks. These courses, of course, are much more flexible for students, and there's some evidence nationally that this really does help improve student retention and success. Several schools over the past few years have experimented with these, but the most aggressive experimentation is now occurring at Chattanooga State, where they are moving the majority of their courses into that accelerated format. So what that means in practical terms for us is that, of course, a student today is, if they're taking, say, 4 courses, but they're taking 2 during these first 7 weeks, and 2 other courses the back half of the semester for the second 7 weeks. Well, then as of today, they're showing only those 2 classes, not the full 4. So as we go through the semester, as those students begin to get in those courses, FTE numbers are going to go up as we see the impact of this. So again, the 8.8% decline we're seeing as of this census snapshot, very preliminary, will grow over time. That gap will close. It won't close entirely, of course, but it will close over time. And on the Tcat side, again, we're going to see those numbers fluctuate day by day. But so far, some really excellent news with almost a double-digit increase at our Tcats. Next slide, please, Carol. Okay, so to get into a little bit more detail, here's a community college breakdown of where the historical enrollments have been and what the preliminary 2021 data tell us. And on the left-hand side, you can kind of see a summary of what's happening that illustrates what's happening on the line chart. Dual enrollment at community colleges is down only 1%. We're seeing some good dual enrollment numbers that are continuing to come in as those classes start. So in that sense, community colleges have held the line on dual enrollment. Where we're seeing pressure is in the first-time freshman class. That is down 6% compared to last year. And you'll recall last year it also declined. So we're seeing some continued pressure in the first-time freshman enrollments. Transfer enrollments, those who are coming to us either from out of state or from a university, those numbers are holding steady as well. They're down about 1%. But where we're seeing the most pressure is on continuing students. And that simply means a person who's not a freshman, is not a transfer, they've been enrolled with us before the prior semester. Those continuing students are down 15% year over year. That's a big drop. Anecdotally, we were hearing this over the summer. Campuses were seeing their efforts. It was tougher with continuing students, and so we were expecting this to occur. But that's a pretty big decline in those students. That portends some downward pressure on freshman retention rates. And so we go to the next slide. You'll see that fall-to-fall retention rate and the pressure it's under. So what this metric looks at is taking a freshman class and then looking at how many of those students come back the next fall. So for instance, that 2018 number, the very top of the bar, shows you the 2018 freshman class, which was about 19,000 students. 55% of them came back the subsequent fall 19. Historically, this number is in the low to mid 50s. We saw some pressure on it from the fall 20 class. That freshman class, which again was already smaller than normal due to COVID, also saw a declining retention rate down to 51%. Still within a range that we historically see. It's historically around 51, 52 to upwards of the mid to high 50s, but this is at the bottom of that range. To put this in context of numbers too, so if you combine both the smaller 2020 freshman class and the reduction in the retention rate, that means there are over 2,000 students from last year's freshman class who are not here that we would normally have expected based on the size of the cohort and the retention rate. So that's a big part of the reduction. That, of course, has ripple effects throughout the system. It has impacts on the outcomes-based funding formula. It'll be felt for quite a few years, these declines. Next slide, please, Carol. Okay, so to give you some more high-level looks at what we're seeing, again, dual enrollment is holding steady overall across the system, but we're actually seeing increases at about half of our colleges. In fact, 3 schools have seen dual enrollment increases since pre-pandemic, Chattanooga, Cleveland, and Walters. We are seeing increases in students who took a year off from high school. So why is this important? So part of this is every year in the freshman class, we typically see students who have taken a year or 2 off since high school. It's a small percentage. The bulk of the freshmen, of course, come straight from high school. They graduate in May. They enroll with us in the following semester. But again, every year there's a small proportion who do have what's called a gap year. They take a year off. State financial aid has a particular view of that. The lottery scholarship allows the student to use their Hope Scholarship. If they take a gap year, they are still eligible if they qualify. Promise does not. So Promise, by the way it's written, requires the student to go straight into higher education. So the fact that we had quite a few students last year who didn't show up as freshmen was of concern. This was a TBR priority. We strongly encourage the General Assembly and state regulatory agencies such as TSAC to waive that provision of Promise, allowing those students to use Promise if they were to take a year off, as many of them did in fall 20. So we did see some growth in that percentage of students who took that gap year. It's still fairly small. Again, it's not the majority, but there is some fruit that's born from that decision to allow Promise to be used the year following high school, which allowed many students to come into college on Promise on financial aid. And then another highlight in the lower left-hand corner. I'm sorry, Carol, if you can go back to that slide. In the lower left-hand corner of that, and you heard Dr. Puryear mention this morning, we're seeing some pretty rapid growth in the higher education and prison population. Again, this is a small base. There's a lot of room to grow, but several schools cited this as contributing to their enrollment increases in certain populations. This, of course, is consistent with the governor's investments across the state in correctional facilities, and we're excited to see this really reflecting, I think, the open access mission of our system. Now, on the right-hand side, some of the troubling sides. I'm sorry, Carol. We are still seeing that recent high school graduate number fall. Again, the overall freshman class falling about 6%. That includes people across the age bands. Focusing in on just the recent high school graduates, that number's falling 10%. So about 1,500 fewer freshmen right out of high school are attending our community colleges this fall. If you take a look at the combined 2-year total of that, that's about a 20% decline in the first-time freshman class from those recent high school graduates. That's effectively undoing a lot, the lion's share of the Promise increase we saw in 2015. So there's pressure on that. We saw demographic changes last year. The pandemic and enrollment declines really hit our Black students. That has continued this fall as well, another 8% drop in Black students. So cumulatively, we've lost almost a quarter of our Black student population since 2019 over those 2 years. And then finally, lower right-hand corner, the pandemic enrollment increases are hitting women this year a little bit harder than they're hitting men. We're seeing a 10% decline among women compared to a 7% decline among men. If you go back to the last 2 years and take them in their totality, you still see a slightly larger decline for male students than for female students, but this year seeing the slight reverse of that.
Hey, Chairman Apple, if I might run a quick question by Russ with regard to our Black students. I know it's very early, and I don't know if Vice Chancellor Thompson's on the line, but what's the level of conversation around our Black Male Initiative within THEC? And I know it's probably very early to say it's bearing fruit, but I'd just love a quick status.
And Wendy, if you are on, I'll ask you to chime in on this. I will say, Regent Reynolds, just from my perspective, I think now the right people are at the table having the right conversations. We're doing a lot of listening. We're asking campuses to tell us what are they seeing, what's going on, what's working, what is not working. We're getting the collective we here, not just TBR, are getting a little more transparent about what the data suggests. I think in some situations in the past, there's not been, and this is more a sin of omission rather than commission, but there's not been full transparency about the data on this. So I think now we're confronting the problem and getting the right folks around the table to start working through some solutions. But Dr. Thompson, if you're available, I'd love to hear your perspective to her question too.
As far as African-American involvement with programs, from what I've been able to see, at least from local areas where I've been involved at and through my own Tcat, we are seeing a small uptick depending on what the program is. I've not seen any particular downward trend However, I don't have all the data with me, to be completely honest with you. This is just the information that I've observed and through the trends that I see in my own communities. But I've not seen any particular deviation as far as, excuse me, as far as gender or race has been concerned. I've actually seen a small uptick, at least as far as some of the programs that I'm involved with.
Regent Thompson, that's a good point, and I'll say that's consistent with other observations we're hearing, particularly from Tcats, whose data we don't yet have fully to be able to ascertain whether this trend is continuing. But that's good to hear, and again, it's consistent with things we're hearing from other colleges across our sector in some situations. So, Regent Reynolds, to your question, again, I think I wish we had more detail to bring to you now. Again, the collective we, it's a persistent problem. This is not new. Obviously, the pandemic probably shed a brighter light on this issue, both issues of academic preparation, income, a whole host of factors that are really hitting our Black students, but it's one that is definitely now front and center for both TBR and the state.
And Regent Reynolds, also in the discussion that we were having yesterday internally within the office, is that while we had that significant decline in the adult Black male, what we have discovered this year that it is also a significant decline in the adult Black female. So our discussion needs to shift to take in both of those demographics. And so we discussed that with Wendy at some length yesterday as well.
Thanks to both.
Are there other questions at this juncture before we move into the rest of the material?
Hey, Russ, this is Tom. This may be a question for another day, but I'm kind of intrigued with the whole gap year thing. And is there good data out there on, what happens with that group of kids?
So it's interesting, Regent White. So the conventional wisdom, I would say, suggests that a gap year is not wise because the longer you delay college, of course, the lower your odds of eventually completing. Now, that sort of it belies the fact that the most typical student who intentionally takes a gap year is well prepared and is on his or her way to college and wants to do something in the interim. So there's two types of gap years. There's a gap year that's a very intentional with a plan versus I'm going to not go to college initially and see what happens. That latter is obviously detrimental to their long-term success. We try to address that through a lot of issues. But that's why, particularly in the TBR sector, we don't see a huge proportion of those students.
Russ, I have a question. Do you think the non-acceptance or really the non-requirement of ACT scores and SAT scores have played a part? So maybe students that would have been matriculating to a community college because you don't have to take that ACT test last year, maybe even this year, decided just to go ahead and go to a four-year college?
That's very possible, Regent Green. It's something we've thought about. And honestly, I think the collective intelligence on the impact of being test optional, as it were, is still coming in. There are a lot of theories about how that will play out over time, but it is quite plausible that did have an impact on either encouraging or allowing someone to go to university who may not have been able to due to admission requirements. So that is possible. I will say that a lot of our LGI partners and to some extent UT are again seeing some downward pressure on freshman enrollment as well, and I kind of thought that some of them would have been impervious to that. So it's unclear yet how it's playing out, but I think what you posit is definitely plausible. All right, well, Carol, if you don't mind, go to the next slide, and we will continue here. Board members, we've talked a lot about modality and how courses are delivered. Of course, you saw dramatic changes in 2020 where essentially everything went online. This fall, we've seen some, I guess I'll call it normalization of that data. What you're seeing here is the percentage of student courses that are across the different modalities, in-person, hybrid, and online. These are from the perspective of the course, and so if a student were to encounter, say, an online course and a conventional course throughout her studies, then we're that's showing up in both these data. But the main story here is that you're seeing campuses return more classes to in-person, but still having a heavy reliance on the online and hybrid options. Next slide, please, Carol. Now to TCATs. Again, mentioned earlier, they're up almost 10%. We are tracking this data daily, and as of now, again, TCATs are up a little over 1,000 students in registrations over the same time last year. Next slide will show how this breaks down, and it really is interesting to look at the dual enrollment numbers on this. Next slide, please, Carol. You can see here that TCAT enrollment across different student types, similar to how we saw the community colleges. And the bulk of what we're seeing so far in those increases is within the dual enrollment space. This was somewhat predictable because we have seen an explosion of agreements across the Tcat sector in dual enrollments. I think Dr. Hollins approves and reviews several each week. I mean, there are just dozens coming in, and so we're seeing a lot more Tcat participation in that EPSO space, that early post-secondary opportunity space, doing dual enrollment with their high school partners across the state. And so that's now showing up in the data. We're seeing a flat to slight growth in new students or your freshmen, if you will, and also continuing students. So again, a lot of good news here on the TCAT sector. Again, this will change over time. Dual enrollments will continue to grow, and hopefully we see even more growth in the new and continuing students.
And Russ, if I might interject on that, if you go back to that last slide, Carol, real quick. One thing I would like to point out is that a lot of this growth that you see in the fall 2021 is directly impacted by the money that was approved for us by the legislature and the governor's office to address our TCAT wait list. That additional 1,000 students we were able to accommodate because of the money that was given to us for that. I'd also just like to just stray just a moment and show to you that you should have either received already or will be receiving a copy of the book called The Economic Power of Skill. We had put this together and had some early discussions with FNA. The premise behind this book and the work that is in here that you will see is that it is a goal with a playbook for how we could actually double the number of TCAT students we have enrolled by 2026. That would be over the next 5 years. If every project that is in this book is put in place, then we would be able to double those numbers. I did get last week an ask by Business and Finance and out of the governor's office to produce 20 copies of this book to get to them. We did that, had it in their hands by Friday. Wanted to make sure that each of you had a copy of the book as well to go over. I hope that what that means is that they are going to take what I'm calling my menu here and choose what they would like to put in place to, again, further the mission of our wait list and what we have happening with our technical colleges. So just wanted to make you aware that that's why you are receiving this book. And we will keep you posted as those initiatives and all of that work continues to move forward. I cannot go without saying again, we are so deeply grateful to the governor and to our legislators for the money that they have infused into our TCATs to address the wait list of over 11,000 students that we had. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chancellor. Next slide, please, Carol. So to the Chancellor's point, a couple of items of note, just ways to programmatically and through policy try to address the enrollment issues we have, those challenges, and again, to fulfill the open access mission. Chancellor mentioned the TCAT capacity funding that has borne fruit. Also, this board has heard us talk on several occasions about the widespread use across our system of both strategic enrollment management and the Achieving the Dream initiative. Of course, ATD is focused on completion and equity gaps and making sure that all students are maximizing their chances of success. The strategic enrollment management is really focused on new populations, intentional recruitment, basically making TBR more accessible to more people. Those are intentional efforts across all 40 colleges, which we think over time and are currently helping quite a bit. And then lastly, an item we'll talk about more in the budget section is our Center for Innovation in Teaching and Learning. Currently, it's a resource for all of our faculty to improve pedagogy, to learn more about how to use technology. That's a key part of this because ultimately this is all about that faculty-student interaction, and we're trying to provide resources for our faculty to really be able to reach more students and get them ready. Next slide, please, Carol. So as we wrap this up, key takeaways. Again, enrollment down at this point, 9% at community colleges. That number is going to shrink a little bit over time. It'll get closer to it won't be as low as that. Tcat's up about 9.5%. And before I leave the enrollment numbers, one school that's worthy of note and comment is Northeast State Community College. We are seeing increases at Northeast in both their freshman class, which again, the overall sector is declining in the freshman class, and in that fall-to-fall retention rate, which also, again, we saw declines in the overall community college sector. Northeast has seen increases in both, and so Dr. Bullock and her team are to be commended for that good news, and so a lot of hard work. Again, middle block here, new students down by 6%, though dual enrollment is holding steady. But the main pressure we're seeing on that right-hand side of that third box is the continuing students, the retention rates, which are falling and are under continued pressure across the community college sector. Tcats, again, growing and holding steady on their continuing students. Next slide, please, Carol. As we now get into completion, and you can go ahead even to the next one here. So let's jump right into the bottom line, which is how many credentials did TBR produce in 2021? The answer is in red at the bottom, almost 23,000 credentials produced in this past academic year. That is essentially tying the record we set last year as a system. And you'll see later on how that is, in some cases, exceeding, if not meeting, our Drive to 55 targets. But in spite of the enrollment pressures, we are seeing just, again, record completions. This plays through the outcomes formula. It is a key pillar to TBR, and it's really the reason we're here. And so this is great news, and let me commend all the colleges who have really done a lot of work to keep these numbers elevated where they are. Again, 23,000 credentials this past academic year. Next slide, please, Carol. To focus in on another common metric, the first-time freshman graduation rate. And board members, you'll recall our previous discussions. This is an effective metric to look at community college performance, but it is a very narrow metric looking at just first-time, full-time freshmen. A lot of our students, of course, are not fitting that profile, and their success is not captured by this metric. But again, for freshmen, this is the best way to measure their performance. If you look at how many of those students graduate within a 3-year window over time, these are those graduation rates you see. Currently coming in from this most recent cohort at 26%, which is the highest on record. Still way lower than we want it to be. We've got a long way to go. You heard that from Dr. Jackson earlier about Nashville as emblematic of this, but we are setting a record with that graduation rate. Again, 26% across the sector. Motlow State had the highest at 34%, and all told, we've about doubled our graduation rates within about a 10-year period. Next slide, please, Carol. However, under the challenges underneath continue to be the equity gaps. And if you were to break down that graduation rate by race, you see the data before you. The difference between the Black overall graduation rate and the white graduation rate continues to be large. We did see improvements in both Hispanic and Black graduation rates this past year. In fact, the Black graduation rate dipped troublingly so last fall, but it's back on trend line, moving up. Got a long way to go, but moving in the right direction. The Hispanic graduation rate is closer to their white counterparts. And we now have the ability to look at low-income student graduation rates. You see the blue line there on the graph indicating that just about 24% of them graduated within the 3-year period. To put that in perspective, let me draw your attention to the number in the lower end of that blue box on the right. To close that equity gap, our colleges need to graduate about 500 more Black students to get to that equitable point. So that's kind of the target that we have in mind. But again, continued pressure on the equity gaps across our graduation rates. Next slide, please, Carol. This chart is one you've seen before, and I'll walk you through what this is again, because this is going to extend the success conversation a little bit further than what the traditional metrics are going to show. Again, this is looking at the first-time freshman graduation rate, but it's going to take a new twist on it. It's going to not only look at the 3-year window. Students don't stop their studies after 3 years, though that is the standard metric to look at. They continue to earn credentials beyond that, and we're seeing improvement over time. So what you're looking at here is what we call a cumulative graduation rate, which simply looks at the graduation rate as you move left to right, counting up numbers of semesters along the way. So as you move left to right there, you'll see we sort of show a mark of where the 3-year graduation rate would be, showing 9 semesters, fall, spring, summer, and then subsequently what happens to those students over time. So if we were to start at the bottom of that chart and looking at the 2011 cohort, after 3 years, that cohort had about a 15% 3-year graduation rate. But if you keep tracking those students, throughout their tenure, they eventually get up to about a 27% graduation rate down on the right-hand side of that gray line. But then as you look at subsequent cohorts, the 2012 cohort in yellow, moving up to the 2017 cohort in blue, and ultimately this 2018 cohort in red, we're seeing that 3-year number rise and rise, and we're going to again see that grow over time. In some ways, the 3-year graduation rate now meets or exceeds the 6 and 7 year grad rates from prior cohorts. So we're seeing acceleration in graduations. That's what this really shows in essence, is the acceleration in graduations, and the fact that the 3-year window, while conventional, really also still misses a lot of student success that we hope to capture in a metric that's a little more holistic than just the 3-year graduation rate. So again, some takeaways from this section. Record degree production total, about 23,000 students. Credentials have been earned this past year. The highest community college graduation rate that we've ever had at 26%, but with continued equity gaps across the sector, which still, of course, are a focus of TBR's work. Next slide, please, Carol. Now getting into the third pillar, community workforce development. Next slide, please. Focusing now on the Tcats. From the 2020 data, we still see incredible performance from this sector. 79% completion rate for Tcats, 85% job placement rate, and a 95% licensure pass rate for that sector. Very successful numbers, consistent with prior years, and you can see even by program, those job placement rates are robust. We're seeing excellent numbers from across the Tcat sector throughout the 19-20 year. Next slide, please, Carol. And then holistically, looking at our Drive to 55 targets, recall that, again, this is a long-term goal to get 55% of Tennesseans with an educational credential. We're currently, as a state, at 47%, making a lot of progress, though I will note that, as we say, every other state has their foot on the gas, and they're increasing quite fast as well. So we've got some work to do, even if we were to hit 55%. But where TBR is compared to its goals, you see in the half pie charts here below. And I'll remind the board that in 2018, we were exceeding our targets and worked with the governor's office to raise those targets even higher because we're already meeting our Drive to 55 goals. So overall, community colleges are close to hitting their target number. Tcats are making progress as well. But overall, we feel like we will hit our target number by the year 2025. So again, to wrap up, members of the board, again, you're seeing the effects of the pandemic continue to impact our enrollment across demographics, across student types. However, completion rates are setting record highs, credential production is at record highs, and Tcat completion, licensure and pass rate, and job placement numbers are again at exceptionally healthy levels. So overall, there is both good news and some troubling news in this, but we wanted to bring you the full story as we see it based on the data that exists as of today. At this point, I can open it up to questions and then turn it back to Regent Apple.
Hey, Russ, this is Weston. I'm just curious, when will this data, college by college, be available. I was actually looking at some data a couple days ago, and I think the online portal still shows the 2017 cohort as the most recent. Am I correct?
You're correct, and we're going to get updated as fast as possible because we want to get this out there. Because again, everything you're seeing here is mostly sector level, so we're going to get that updated as fast as possible and get it in the board members' hands and the public's hands to see it all by college.
Dr. Deaton, this is Ramona. Can I ask you a question about the 7-week classes?
Sure.
7-week classes as a whole, they have a tendency to be great for students, but long-term data also shows that it has an increase in terms of faculty burnout. So do you know if they have any kind of systems in place to help with that, to prevent that from happening along the way?
Yeah, Regent Shelton, it's a great point, and it's one I know that the faculty subcouncil talked a lot about during our most recent meeting. And I do know that at Chattanooga in particular with Dr. Ashford, she's keenly aware of that dynamic, and I think worked a lot with her faculty to try to mitigate that. It is a long-term concern, and it also 7-week courses, tend to lend themselves sometimes more appropriately to certain disciplines than others, particularly with labs and those things. So it is something that people are watching. I kind of hope that we're able to ask faculty about this. We've surveyed faculty periodically about a variety of issues, and so I'm kind of hoping that in the future we'll be able to get some qualitative feedback from them to see if indeed what the reactions are to that accelerated course. But it's something that we're definitely watching. I know our presidents are thinking a lot about and trying to work with faculty leadership to try to mitigate as best they can.
Thank you.
Well, Regent Apple, I will turn it back over to you, but again, happy to answer further questions. You can always contact me later by email or by a phone call, and happy to talk through this with any board member.
Thank you, Dr. Deaton. That's a lot of information and a lot of research that's been conducted on behalf of this report. Thank you so much to you and your team. Our last item, and I know we're running a little bit behind, but good conversation, is item number 9, name, image, and likeness compensation for student athletes. And I'm going to call on our General Counsel, Brian Lapps.
Thank you, Regent Apple, and good morning, everybody. Following up on the committee chairs meeting regarding the presentation about name, image, and likeness activity for student athletes that I presented, I was charged with creating a resolution whereby the board would delegate to the President's Athletic Council the creation of procedures. So, Carol, could you skip to the next slide, which summarizes that, please? The resolution is in your materials. The summary of it is that the board supports the recommendation of the President's Athletics Council to permit NIL activity for student athletes, which is in recognition of the changing landscape in collegiate sports. The President's Athletics Council is preparing some NIL procedures in conjunction with the Office of General Counsel, as well as the National Junior College Athletic Association. After the PAC comes up with some, the chancellor will approve them. The board obviously retains the authority to become more involved in this area, should it so desire, but the resolution is otherwise consistent with the discussion at the committee chairs meeting relating to what I understood the board's desire on level of involvement to be. So I'm happy to take questions on that.
I know we covered this in committee chairs meeting, but are there any other discussion items to bring up to? Okay, hearing none, we'll ask for a motion in a second.
So moved, Tom.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. And now, any further discussion before we do a roll call vote? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, would you conduct the roll call vote, please?
Thank you. Chair Apple.
Aye.
Regent Barlin.
Aye.
Regent White.
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. And is there anything else to come before this committee? Before we adjourn, I just want to recognize Dr. Deaton's and Dr. Blackwood's, Dr. Lemming, and General Counsel Laps's team for making this report go so smooth and make it look so easy. But these items that we approved today represent hours of development, research, planning, implementation, modeling, hours of meetings and presenting to various councils have been conducted. And lastly, all of us have had the information for approval. And I just want to applaud the teams. Would each one of you please go back and tell them how much we appreciate all the behind the scenes work they do on our behalf. And with that, I'll return it to Vice Chair Reynolds.
Thank you very much. That was an excellent committee meeting. And as Regent Apple said, great information that was shared with us. Russ's slides, Sanja has advised me, are on our website under that same link, a link rather to all of our materials for today if anybody wants to go back for a deeper dive. So well done. Greg Duckett, as we heard earlier, is traveling today. So I'll take the gavel for the Finance Committee meeting here. I will add, and we'll hear a little more on this tomorrow, but he has done a great job chairing the Dyersburg State Advisory Committee thus far. So we'll let him off the hook for today. With that, I will call the Finance and Business Operations Committee meeting to order and ask Sanja to once again call the roll, please, ma'am.
Thank you. Vice Chair Reynolds.
Here.
Regent George.
Here.
Regent Gill.
Here.
Regent Green. I believe she had to leave for her meeting. Regent Hatch.
Here.
Regent Wamp.
Here.
Thank you. And Regent White.
I'm here.
Thanks very much. Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
We have 5 items to consider today. We'll begin with go back to Brian Laps, our General Counsel, on parking and traffic fines.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reynolds. I appreciate that. Carol, could you go to the next slide, please? To be consistent with changes in the law and the concept of open government, the board is being asked and is required pursuant to our rule to approve the amounts of the fines only in the traffic and parking context. Tcats other than Chattanooga, which is part of Chattanooga State, do not impose traffic and parking fines. It's only community colleges. In reviewing the fines and looking and pulling the materials together that are in the board notebook, you'll notice that the fines tend to be educational in nature. They are all less than or equal to the corresponding municipal fines, and the colleges have represented that to us. Our police officers have the ability in serious, flagrant, repeated violations, however, to issue municipal citations, which can be greater, and then they would be dealt with in the regular course of things. The specific amounts of the different fines have been located in your materials, but you'll notice they're all less than $50 or equal to $50. The Chancellor has approved these fines. So to carry this matter that's been going on a while across the goal line, I'm asking that the board approve the fines listed in your materials. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Questions for Brian? If there are none, this does require a motion and a second. Approve, please.
So moved, Tom.
Thank you, Regent. Thank you, Joey, on that second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Sanja, you're up again.
Thank you. Vice Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Hatch.
Aye.
Regent Wamp.
Aye.
Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Danny Gibbs, talk to us about the dual enrollment fees.
Okay, thank you, Madam Vice Chair and members. To provide you some background, at the December 2014 meeting, of the board. The board acted to approve at that time a recommendation to establish a special maintenance fee rate, or as we often refer to, a dual enrollment fee rate for dual enrollment courses. The reason for the special rate was because at that time a total of $1,200 was available for dual enrollment grants for each qualifying community college or Tcat student. For the community college students, the grant was to be awarded at the rate of $500 for course 1, $500 for course 2, and $200 for course 3. So a special maintenance fee rate was set for dual enrollment courses at the community colleges that would approximately equal the dual enrollment grant amounts. The rate was $166 per hour. So a 3-hour dual enrollment course would cost $498, approximately equal to the $500 dual enrollment grant that was available. And this would allow the dual enrollment grant to fully fund the first 2 courses and partially fund the 3rd course. And a similar rate and process was established for the Tcats. Next slide, please. During this most recent legislative session, a bill was passed that provided that the dual enrollment grant would now be available for the first 4 dual enrollment courses and would now be equal to the amount or to the cost of in-state tuition and mandatory fees established annually for the community colleges and the Tcats, therefore eliminating the need for a special dual enrollment course rate. And this law goes into effect January 1, 2022. Madam Vice Chair, so now that the law states that the dual enrollment grant will be equal to the cost of in-state tuition and mandatory fees established annually for the community colleges and Tcats, staff recommends that the special maintenance fee rate established in 2014 for dual enrollment courses be eliminated effective spring 2022 semester or trimester, and that going forward, the maintenance fees, mandatory fees, and non-mandatory fees for dual enrollment courses will be the same as that for regular courses for the community colleges and Tcats, which is consistent with the dual enrollment grant as identified in the new legislation that will be effective in January.
So when it comes to asking for a motion on this, do we need to be specific that this would be effective consistent with the statute for 1/1/22?
Yes, I think that would be appropriate, and that the board is eliminating the special dual enrollment course fee that was established in 2014.
Okay. Questions for Danny? I think he has shared some background on this with members of the committee, but I know there may still be questions. Just want to pause for a moment. Hearing none, we also need a motion and a second, obviously, on this before we proceed to a vote for approval, hopefully.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you, Regent Gill. And I'm sorry, the voice on the second, was that Regent George?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So any further discussion? If not, let's call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just so that I want to clarify the motion, it's what is recommended as far as what's on the slide, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Vice Chair Reynolds, your vote, please.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Hatch.
Aye.
Regent Womp.
Aye.
Thank you. And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Danny, an informational item for us, rather, with regard to the technology access fees.
Yes, Madam Vice Chair. As you recall, TBR Guideline B60 requires staff to annually review 25% of the institutional technology access fee spending plans to determine if they are in fact compliant with TBR and TAF guidelines. This year, we reviewed the plans for 4 community colleges and 7 Tcats. The community colleges include Cleveland State, Columbia State, Montlow, and Walters. The Tcats included Chattanooga, Dixon, Elizabethton, Knoxville, Paris, Pulaski, and Whiteville. And after some minor corrections, we're pleased to report that all plans reviewed were found to be in compliance with applicable policies and guidelines. And Madam Vice Chair, this concludes our informational report on the TAF spending plans.
Any questions from the Finance Committee members or any other board member? I have a quick one. Is it safe to assume that going forward now with the merger, the completion of the merger between Jackson and Whiteville, that Whiteville's spending plan on this will now be rolled up in Jackson's?
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. 2 items we did have a briefing on at committee chairs, but 2 very important considerations for us today. So back to you, Danny, to talk about our system budget request, please, sir.
Okay, thank you. First, I'd kind of like to provide a brief overview of the budget request process that we go through each year. On an annual basis, board staff develops a list of system funding needs that are external or are not recognized through the higher education funding formula. Items identified here generally are for the benefit of the system as a whole and aligned with TBR and the state's strategic goals and plans. Review of these items by the board is the first step in this process. Today, we'll present to you a list of items under consideration for submittal to the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. It's the intent that after today's report, we may continue discussions with various state stakeholders before finalizing the list of items that will be submitted to the commission. However, at this point, we do not, anticipate any changes from what's being presented to you today. Any TBR items endorsed by the commission are then forwarded on to the governor for his consideration when developing the administration's fiscal year 22-23 budget recommendations to the General Assembly. And from there, the General Assembly will ultimately determine which items are funded and included in the final state budget. Next slide, please. As you can see in this chart before you, the items being presented today total approximately $13.54 million, with about $9.4 million of that being recurring and about $4,140,000 being non-recurring. And there are 3 items being presented for your consideration. The safety and security funding for Tcats, and this is one that's been before you before. Tcat student success support, and again, this one also has been heard by the board in previous years, and then enhancing student success and workforce development. And even though each of these were described in the materials in your packet and were briefly discussed at the committee chairs meeting, Madam Vice Chair, if I may, I would like to ask the executive vice chancellors from the areas where these projects would be housed to briefly speak to the initiatives. And if I
think that would be great.
Okay, great. First, I'd like to ask Dr. Kim McCormick to address the safety and security Tcat request. And then when she's finished, if Russ Deaton would, Dr. Deaton would address the final 2 initiatives, that would be great.
Well, good morning again, everyone. And the safety and security Tcat funding is, as we talked about this morning, it is a request that we're going to have this year. We had it last year. We were able to get that chief position, but now we need to request the funding to actually build out this department. And it's $5.2 million recurring and $4.14 million non-recurring. And the funds would continue the investments that we currently have in Tennessee for campus safety and security, and it will add police personnel for the Tcats along with the appropriate equipment needs as necessary. And again, given the state's recent investment in the Tcat capacity initiative, expected growth that we anticipate seeing in the Tcats, keeping in mind we are up almost 10% now, it is going to be imperative that the investment be made in campus safety and security for the Tcat, the student body, the faculty, and the staff, very much like we see in our current community college police forces and those that the public universities have. And to go into a little more detail with this, and remember that I told you that Chief Kane is actually going to be doing an operational presentation tomorrow during the Chancellor's report, but we are talking about funding officers, the actual equipment they need, the training. We want the officers to have post-certified employees, and they have to have all kinds of things like psychological examinations, medical examinations, background checks, and then we have to work through accreditation, and there are many steps along the way. So that is actually a general overview of the request, Vice Chancellor Gibbs. And again, more tomorrow.
Any questions for Kim before we move on to Russ again? Okay, Dr. Deaton.
All right, well, the second item, as Danny mentioned, is a familiar one, the Tcat Student Success Support. And for this one, the context here, if you think about the changes that have gone on at Tcats the last 3, 4, 5 years, they've been extraordinary. Each Tcat is now a member of the Achieving the Dream Network, which really asks them to focus much more on student success and equity gaps. They're part of the Strategic Enrollment Management work, which is really thinking more intentionally about recruitment across demographics and across different counties and areas. The banner system implementation has really been a heavy lift for them. Basically, the Tcats need more horsepower, and this would allow them to add on about 1 FTE per campus to really fulfill the greater expectations we've asked of them over the past few years. Many Tcats, as this board knows, are thinly staffed and with small budgets. Oftentimes, it's the president himself or herself who's coming to committee meetings or sub-councils, et cetera. They just need more horsepower to fulfill their mission and to fulfill expectations we've asked them to do. So this request would provide that for them.
Not hearing any questions, so let's move to the next one.
Sounds good. This last one is new. This one, members of the board, is really in 2 parts, and it's connected to the strategic plan in many ways as we think about how to address student learning. And it's going to build off of the existing Center for Innovation in Teaching and Learning that TBR has been able to stand up through grant funding and through internal resources as a way of providing resources to faculty to help them in their teaching. The world of pedagogy has changed dramatically in the last few years, and faculty now have so many more tools at their disposal, so much more technology that can be used to affect student learning, that we feel that an investment in personnel to staff the center would go a long way for our faculty, our 6,000 plus faculty across TBR. The center that we have now, which again thinks a lot about how to help and train faculty, is incorporating various practices that improve student learning, trying to introduce new technologies to the classroom, but there's no personnel to go along with it. So this request, the first half of it, would provide a small number of personnel to staff the Center for Teaching and Learning, Innovation Teaching and Learning, to again assist faculty with their pedagogy and designing their courses to maximize student learning. Again, using both technology and resources that are currently out there and to improve their teaching methods. This is one that we feel would have a dramatic impact given the TBR student body, many of whom come in with challenges, with life circumstances, preparation challenges. This really gets at the heart of the faculty-student interaction, which is at the core, of course, of what TBR does. The second half of this request is a bit of a companion to this, to the first part, and it is to provide funding for student technology solutions. There are quite a few areas where TBR tries to leverage our system of identity to have technologies across the entire system that would affect student retention and graduation. For instance, there's quite a bit of technology innovation in the virtual reality training space, the ways we think about systems that focus on student recruitment and retention, called a CRM system, or even the comprehensive learner record, which is a way to show employers and industry exactly what skills and abilities a student has. These are all technology solutions which are more difficult to do piecemeal, but if there were a system level approach with a funding stream to purchase those, would go a long way to fulfill the mission of many of our colleges. So the back half of this would be focused on those technology solutions. Holistically, though, a $1.5 million request to address student learning. And I'm happy to answer questions about this one if there are any.
Hearing no questions from the Finance Committee or other members of the board, this does require our approval, so we're entertaining a motion to approve the system budget request to THEC, please.
Motion to approve. This is Hatch.
Thank you, Joey. A second?
I'll second. It's Tom.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Sandra, let's call the roll.
Thank you. Vice Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Hatch.
Aye.
Regent Lomp.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thanks, everyone. Dick Tracy.
Good morning, Vice Chair, members. This morning we're presenting our capital outlay budget requests. This year's been a little different. We brought the capital maintenance in the June meeting, and this is the items that are going to be our capital outlay requests. THEC initially only allowed us to submit capital outlay renovation projects. Those were sent in, requested, sent in. We received 3 projects. If you go to the next slide, Carol. Those 3 projects are the Pellissippi State Hardin Valley campus renovations at $25 million, Vol State Somatics renovation at $7.6 million, and Walter State, the Fishman Library Student Hub renovation at $9.5 million, which totals $42,100,000. These projects we've vetted these within staff, looking at the cost, the scope, and these are being sent forward to, once approved, will be sent forward to F&A and THEC. The next one, since then, we had instructions from THEC allowing us to submit new construction projects. We sent that request out. These are due to THEC next month. And so we received projects, looked at the projects that were submitted. We were able to submit 3 to THEC, also 3 projects to THEC. And the 3 projects that we're moving forward are the Nashville State Clarksville campus expansion. This is a project that's been previously submitted as an outlay project at $35.5 million. Again, these projects we're still continuing to vet with the campuses. The next project at Roane State is the campus expansion and simulation hospital. This is a replacement project for their current Knox County facility that will construct an allied health facility at $79,020,000. And the third project is a statewide project. This is actually a project that would reside at the Columbia State main campus in Columbia, but would also house projects for Tcat Hohenwald, Tcat Pulaski. Again, this project was one that was in a previous capital outlay submittal at $50,212,000, which totals $164,736 $164,732,000. Next slide, Carol. There are other projects that were submitted. We list these in the budget as potential out-year projects. They're not requesting funding at this time. So our request for our capital outlay, next slide, Carol, please, would be the renovation projects at the $42,100,000 and the new construction outlay at $164,732,000, which our request would be $206,832,000 for our capital outlay projects that we will submit to THEC and FNA for their consideration. And with that, if you have any questions, this is the breakdown, but I can take any questions if you have any.
Questions? I do have one quick one on Vol State on that Wilson County campus, with that being in the potential. So what's their time?
Excuse me, their time frame? I guess we will look at, I think they will look at resubmitting that project in next year's capital outlay request. I think one of the issues we wanted to have a discussion, I think, with the new president about the needs, what they would like to do at that campus. Initially, there was a lot of discussion about, I think, a lot of gen ed type projects. So I think there is a need in that area and a lot of growth. And I think that we just need to, I think, further that plan as we move forward.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Anybody else? We do need to approve this request. And Dick, we're approving as presented. And if there are, as you submit this, if there are any budget changes or nuance changes, you'll report back to the committee, as I understand it, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. So we do need a motion to approve, please, gentlemen.
Vice Chair Reynolds, this is Regent Hatch, being the lifelong contractor that I am. I move that we approve all of these wonderful construction projects.
Thank you,
I was
sir.
just thinking that. That's funny. I'll throw in a second.
Oh, thank you, Tom White. Any further discussion? If not, for the final time today, Ms. Mason, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Vice Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
And Regent Hatch, would you like to enthusiastically send your vote?
Double aye.
Thank you. Regent Lomp.
Aye.
And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. That completes the work of the Finance and Business Operations Committee today. So unless there are any objections from the committee, we are adjourned. And now to the close of our committee meetings themselves. Thanks to everybody for doing all of your homework before we got here today and allowing us to have such a great and robust discussion on so many fronts. We have our challenges, but boy, do we have opportunities, and there's so many good things going on. It was really wonderful to have all this information today. Sanja advises me that later today, committee reports will be made available on our TBR website, of course, where all our materials for tomorrow are housed. And an email will be sent to let you know when those are uploaded. If any committee chairs have changes on those committee reports, please let her know before tomorrow morning. Chancellor, before we close, any closing comments from your end?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And I just want to echo what has already been said by many of you, to give my thanks to the TBR system staff, the vice chancellors, and all the great work that they do every single day. I see it every day, but when we put it together in a format to present to you, it always brings it home in a much greater way. And I am so proud of the work that they are accomplishing. You saw the strategic plan, you heard that theme, and you saw those road signs in everyone's presentation, because it is very purposeful. we do intend for that to be a useful document that guides us as we continue down the road in this great work that we're doing. Yesterday in our daily updates, there was a section that talked about the bots that are being used to try and enroll students fraudulently in order to gain access to her funds. I just wanted to highlight that to you for one moment in case some of you didn't get a moment to read it, because we have been doing some great work at the system level. And at this point, we are not aware of any student that has fraudulently received money from us, even though in early August, we did begin to see that we were getting the hits. We had one college that had an abnormally large number of applications that rolled out in one day. It quickly set off the red flares, and we were able to go in and start looking at all of our systems to make sure that we were not letting those through. So at this time, as I said, we've had no loss of funds to our knowledge, and I will just put that against what California right now has had over 65,000 fake fraudulent claims that have been paid. So I have to say that, again, in congratulations to our staff that were able to go in and put the things in place in order to help not allow that to happen. A lot of it is due to the great job that we do with the processing of those HERF funds, the processes that were put in place up front. So I just needed to point that out again as kudos to the staff on the great job that they're doing. I'd also like to make y'all aware that in the morning, I am not going to be able to join you for the first part of our board meeting. There is one person in the state that can get my attention over you, and that is the governor. I have been called to a meeting at his office in the morning. It does have to do with a very incredible announcement that will be made public next week. So I just want y'all to be on the lookout Tuesday of next week for some really fantastic news that is coming to the state of Tennessee. And Madam Chair, that is all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you. We will try to muddle through in the morning as best we can, so until you return. But thank you for letting us know. And I just want to add one quick postscript to what you said on the strategic plan. It is abundantly clear that this is a living, breathing document. It is not sitting on a shelf. And we are very grateful. And frankly, it keeps all of us as board members on our toes too. So thank you very much to the team. Folks, if anyone has anything else for the cause, please speak up now. But otherwise, we put in a good morning's worth of work, and we'll look forward to being together again tomorrow at 8:30, please. So see you then. Bye, everybody.